Good morning. Welcome to this October 8th School Board Work Session. Thank you for joining us this morning. And I think we're ready to get started. Madam Superintendent?
Thank you. Good morning. And the first item we have before you will be our legislative platform. Ms. Dawn, she'll come forward this morning and bring that forward.
Sorry.
Sure. Yes, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Before you, we have our draft legislative platform for discussion. See if there's any items on there that you'd like to remove, modify, that meets your expectations.
Can you kind of summarize them right quick since we haven't
Sure.
looked at this, please?
Item number one is keeping the funding compression allocation, which has been part of the appropriations for the past 2 years, but we need it to be part of state law in order for it to be recurring money that we can do things for teachers with. The second one is to increase the BSA and discontinue rolling back the RLE. The third one is to make sure that the funding for our school safety officers, which last year we were able to use that funding for Guardian. We got permission in state law to use those funds for Guardians now. But we're having an issue with the district having to contribute more than what we're getting from the state. And so we'd like to make sure that that gets state funding. The fourth one is the BAM-only scores. We repeatedly have issues with having to move teachers after the school year starts because of how late we get those BAM scores. And so we'd like to receive them by the end of July to make sure nobody's having to set up a classroom and then be moved and disrupting students and those types of things. Number 5 is putting that best and brightest bonus money into teacher salaries, which we've already saw the governor's hasn't said that that's where that money is going to come from, but we suspect that where part of the money is going to come from for his proposal. And number 6 is regarding funding. That's probably the one that I have the. It's probably the only thing on here that I think would be a big challenge and maybe not worth the fight this year, because everything on here I think is implementable this year. Fully fund the cost of a mental health counselor at each school in the district is number 7, and then number 8 is the hazardous walking statute. There have been bills the past few years to make changes to that, but it's a very expensive proposition for the state, and so what we'd like them to do is make sure they study it first. And this comes from the State Transportation Association's platform, making sure we study it first and know what the impact is going to be to both student safety and the funding formula before we make any huge changes to that statute.
Ms. Miller?
Do you have approximate cost for number 7 for Polk County? Because I know when we talk statewide that it would vary.
It's like, no, one, I thought like 14 million.
It was, we brought it in the budget because Dr. Stanky had those figures for us. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it was something.
It was
I think it
around,
was 20.
She did two positions. If
Right.
it's just one, I think it's going to be roughly half.
20. For 2 positions. I think it was 20 million, 20 or 22.
So maybe it is roughly 10.
But we're asking for 1. I mean, okay,
state funding.
right.
Makes sense.
Which is, yeah, you're right on that one.
Ms. Fields?
So my question to Ms. Wendy, last year we had teacher certification, one of our priorities, and I know that we made some positive strides there. So there's no need to continue to keep our eye on that or to have that as one of our platforms.
Mrs. Fields, I don't believe so. I think that with the changes the legislature made last year, they were really in our favor in terms of being a district and helping our teachers. I guess if we looked at it overall, we probably could make a few adjustments, but I don't know that it would be as helpful as the changes that they had previously made.
Okay, and when we have an opportunity, Ms. Bird, I would like to have an overview of what that looks like, because I don't think it ever came back to us. I don't remember, it might have, and actually shared exactly the progress that we made.
Okay. Ms. Fortney, then Mr. Townsend.
Just as a point of reference for me as a newer board member, how do you come up with this? And is it proactive to what you suspect is gonna happen in the legislature, or does you understand my question?
You mean the
Because I
items?
know things roll over up there continuously, so we can kind of foresee what they're gonna try to do, maybe. So is this kind of proactive
It
to
is
what you
proactive,
anticipate?
And it's proactive and it's intended to reflect the superintendent's and the board's priorities that I've been hearing from you.
That's, yeah, because definitely the mental health would be that for me. And then the only other thing, I don't know, number 5, it just says like 4 teachers. I just personally, I'm thinking all teachers, because they're always talking about beginning teachers.
Right?
Here we go again.
Mr. Townsend and Mr. Wilson.
Dovetailing off Mrs. Fields' point, I got a call 2 days ago from someone who's trying to take the math test, who's trying to take the GK knowledge test for the 3rd time. He's not a math teacher, doesn't want to be a math teacher, he's doing something else. That's going to be what holds it, like he's routinely come up a little bit short on the math, so nothing's changed for him in a meaningful way. I want that back on the agenda. I would like to see, and I think these as a whole show kind of a problem in how we address things, and I have a suggestion. Like, for one thing, number 4 says require state calculated VAM only scores to be provided by DOE by July 31st. That should read in VAM only scores. That should read do away with VAM completely. Now, if they refuse to do that, they should at least get it to us by July 31st. But I think this reads as if we're supportive of VAM. We just want it here on time. I think it's important that we separate, that we make clear where we stand on a lot of these things. It shouldn't be redirect best and brightest funding to salary increases. It should be eliminate bonus programs altogether and increase salaries, period. So maybe we split these into 2, where it's like basic principles. Like, for one, I would like to see ending mandatory 3rd grade retention on this, which does nothing but hurt our kids, both their data and their humanity, every year, every day. I don't support it. I don't want it to be suggested that I support it. It's an abysmal statewide policy. We should be opposing it. Now, are they going to overturn it this year? Who knows? But as long as we're not telling them overturn it, they can say, well, you're not telling us to overturn it. So there's a lot of, there's like 4 or 5 things I want votes on. I want us to study why Florida has the worst test score growth in America. I want, last year we had a study about ESE on this that's apparently gone away. These are sort of negotiation points, which is fine. I'm fine to have negotiation points, but we need to have some principles about what we're for and what we're not for. And so I guess that's my preliminary thought on that. And I guess we have to come up with some mechanism for how we choose what those things are gonna be.
Mr. Wilson.
Ms. Dodger, when we met with our legislators, our legislative delegation, one of the things I heard was it would be helpful if the school districts out of state were in agreement as it relates to these priorities. And so I guess my question is, do you have a sense of how closely ours align with other districts throughout the state?
The statewide associations generally put out legislative platforms that reflect the overall, what's good for everybody in the state. I would say FSBA, the Superintendent's Association, that's their role, is to come up with items that are generally agreed upon from all 67 districts. This is, you know, our action item.
Right.
So, and individual districts, like you're gonna see something in Orange and Miami-Dade that is probably different. And, in Miami-Dade's case, it's like pages and pages of
I
stuff
wonder
they
how-
want. And we can do that if you want. We can have policy statements and then action items. But historically, this document has been an action item for this session.
And I wonder how difficult it would be to get, this is, you know, to talk to the other counties and say, okay, we're in agreement with the state, Florida School Board Association, for example, on these issues, and have every district do that. But these are our specific issues. I think that might, because we heard that. I clearly heard that from our legislative delegation. And then say, these are the things that are important to us here in Polk County. So that sends, I think, a message to our delegation then, right?
The number one item is the funding compression.
Yeah.
We are the 7th largest district in the state, and we are 64. Did we go off a spot?
We did go with
264 or
61.
61st in the state in funding. And that's because of this funding compression
Right.
element that's been there for 2 years.
Right.
The big rich districts have it on their platform to eliminate that funding compression. They think that that steals money from them, it's their money, and when we get a piece, they get like $5 less, and it upsets them. So, you know, that's something that's very important to our district, and just an
Right.
example of, you know, there's just some things we're never going to agree on as districts. Number 8 is something that I've already been in contact with Hillsborough and some other districts about, because there's always, you know, everybody wants to make changes, but when you make changes, especially to something like hazardous walking, there are some districts where the entire district could be declared a hazardous walking area, and then all the money goes there.
It is just another unfunded mandate, and that's goes to a bigger issue. I think those are the kinds of things that every school district could agree to, right? And so if we could somehow join together in agreement on those things, I think that would be a very powerful voice. And then we could send a message to our local delegation saying, these are the things that are important to us here in Polk County. So those are just my thoughts on it.
Okay, Ms. Fields, then back to Mr. Townsend.
I think historically, we have always looked at what the Florida School Board Association's legislative platform is, and I would imagine there's some discussion at the coalition as well. And I think we kind of look at what they're proposing and see if ours, not necessarily mirror them, but we're in at least some type of uniformity so we can advocate together, if my memory serves me correctly.
Absolutely.
Do you know when
Redirecting
all
best
that's
and
gonna be done?
brightness, the 3% increase and not rolling back the RLE, those are all statewide issues that we're all in agreement on.
Which ones are those again, please?
Number 2, the 3% increase in the BSA and
That's on our
discontinuing
platform.
rolling back the RLE. Number 5, eliminating the bonus programs and putting those dollars into salaries. Those are all issues that, you know, statewide, the associations have them on their platform. You know, no district, you know, you never can say no district because politics are involved.
And those are the common ones on the superintendent's platform as well.
I'm sorry?
We have those on our platform
Right,
as well.
exactly. So, I mean, there are statewide issues on here that we will coalesce with all the other districts on, but some of these are very specific to.
There are
what we
also, one that has come up at FSBA legislative delegation the past couple of years is teachers leaving and coming back after they've retired, which isn't really an issue from us, from what
Right.
I've understood. But every other district seems to have an issue with that. So it's on our legislative platform, and it was overwhelmingly like in the top 2 things chosen, but that's not something that we have an issue on in Polk. So
Right.
it's not something that's on our platform.
Mr. Townsend, then Ms. Fortney.
Can I just
Go ahead,
clarify
sir.
what she just said? So some districts are able to get retired teachers back, okay.
Yes.
What the heck they're doing?
I mean, it's important to understand that the Florida School Board Association is a toothless, weak advocacy organization. the chief person who is our FSBA lobbyist was Rick Scott's chief of staff. She is on record saying that educating children is like fixing a car, and that test scores are all that matters. She's just a terrible, terrible representative for the FSBA. I think she actively works against meaningful change. The FSBA is not helpful to us in advocacy. It's a helpful organization, for sharing practices. It's an extraordinarily weak and quite frankly useless organization in advocacy. What I would like, I think it's important for our legislators to know what we're dissatisfied with in an ongoing way. In fairness to them, how could they possibly know if we change every year what we say? We need to have no more unfunded mandates as a ongoing thing. Stop sending us compliance requirements you're not willing to fund. That's got to be one. Personally, I want third grade retention ended. Mandatory third grade retention ended. It kills kids. It kills data. It does nothing but game the fourth grade and eighth. That's all it does. I want that I want this as an ongoing statement of what we believe here. Now, I'm certainly willing to have those things put to a vote. If the board disagrees, that's fine. But I think we should have a vote on those things, and we should have a statement of ongoing priorities, and then we can have negotiation points for each individual, session. But to only have these, we're never consistent in what we're prioritizing. And from year to year to year, lawmakers may change, but the issues really don't for the most part. We're still dealing with the same screwed up system. Unless we say how it's screwed up repeatedly, people we're complicit in it. I don't want to be complicit in it.
Mr. Wilson, then Ms. Cunningham.
So Ms. Fields' point's well taken, as well as Mr. Townsend. And I think that from my perspective, and I know you have limited control over this, but so it's really just putting it on record. But I agree with Mr. Townsend. They have a lot of things going on in their lives. They have a lot of issues they're dealing with. To the extent that we can be, as a school system throughout the state, very clear about what we want. Here it is. It's very clear. It's very succinct, and they hear it repeatedly. Then I think you have a better chance of getting something done. If we're asking them to look through here and try to tie that to the Florida School Boards Association, what they're trying to accomplish, it's not going to happen. They've got too much on their plate. So we have to be very clear, saying to them every time they hear, here's our message. And I think it's fair to have two messages, one that we agree with every other school on, and then one that is relevant to our school district. But if we're going to get something done, we have to be very clear about that message all the time. And it has to be short and succinct and clear. This is what we need. And then they hear it, and then it becomes etched in their minds, and they're able to accomplish something. A lot of times as I look at these things, and I talk to our state legislators, they all have their own concerns. There are things that they have background in, that they're mostly focused on. So they read this and they have absolutely no idea what it means.
Exactly.
They don't know.
There's no context.
There's no context. So they look at it and they're going to go ask somebody. And guess who they ask? It's not the folks typically that are going to be focused on the things, at least that I believe we should be doing in education. So.
Ms. Cunningham.
We meet with every single one of our delegation members. We review these items with them and give them the background in their offices so that, there's an opportunity to ask questions, provide them with additional information, and make sure they have everything to need. Like I said, I think everything on here is going to be addressed during this upcoming legislative session except for number 6.
So, sorry. I'll wait.
Ms. Cunningham, then Ms. Miller.
Okay, so couple points. One is, through the years, having gone up and spoken to the legislature and our different members of our delegation, I've learned that they're busy. If my area is not education, I'm going to ask the person who's on the legislative delegation from Polk, what do you think? That's a lot of how they learn what they learn. They don't usually seek the information from us individually, at least that's been my experience. So I learned through the years that they want something short and sweet. You know, I really think 8 items is crazy, but I'll support it. Normally, years ago, we said 3 or 4. Give me your top 3 things, and if you could wave your magic wand, what would most help your students in Polk County? So we've expanded that now, it looks like. We're getting bigger and bigger on the list here, which waters down each of the 8. That's just, this is how I feel. I'm not saying any of them aren't good, but I kind of feel like when you walk into their office and you have your 2 minutes to discuss what's important and why, and how does it affect Polk, it would be really awesome to have 1, 2, 3. These are our top 3 items. And then if you get to some of the others, that's great, but this is really what we need for our students here. So I'm all for it, but that's kind of how I wish we would have it. I understand Mr. Townsend's comments. I think that's for a different thing. I think to have a paper or something that says, here is how the Polk County School District feels. These are some of the things that we don't agree with. I think most of us would agree with everything you've said this morning. It's just trying to get to that point. I don't feel that, you know, I feel that the most important piece of legislation that we can do is to enact this list and then give it to everybody. Make sure that the other districts feel the same way, and like you said, maybe they don't because of their children and their schools. But we need to have our priorities. However, coupled with that can be a sheet up under it that said, ideally, if we could, here are some things we would like you to consider as you look forward. But for this coming year, they're not going to abolish. They're not going to correct the fund. They are, in my opinion, they're not going to do some of those drastic measures. But for us to say that we're in favor of it or would want them to look at it and here's how it's adversely affecting, I agree with you with 3rd grade retention. Everything I've ever seen and worked with my schools and with experience in my own daughter's education, kindergarten is the place to retain, not 3rd grade. And if you've got really, really top-notch kindergarten teachers, they can identify that within the first maybe, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks of school. They know who can make it and who can't, because then at kindergarten, and that's a whole nother conversation, it's fun. It's like, oh, I'm a K2, you are, that's cool, versus the 3rd grade, everybody knows. So I disagree with all of that as well. You think they're gonna, sorry, been around long enough to know they're not gonna do some of those things. So I agree with you to have a position paper. I don't know what you wanna call it, maybe where we put, this is priorities, it's different. It's saying, what do I want you to do now this coming session? I personally believe something like this is needed with regular type language, and then maybe as the years go on, you add some of the positions that we have, or you attach it behind there. So it's on record, here's how we feel, but at the same time, right now, here's the 3 things or 4 things that we really need you to address. That's kind of how I feel. Thank you.
Ms. Miller and then Ms. Reynolds.
I just, in the future, I would like to have a meeting before this is drafted, because I know that you listen through the year to find out what we do or what our interests are, but you have some very active members. I do get contacted from legislators specifically on ESC issues. And you might have others here that have a similar background with different fields they're in. And I do think this is a lot, and we know the game, you know, going in with 8 and knowing one of these is not even gonna be close, I would just rather not include it. I would rather go for, because what they do is here, you know, here you are again, like if we identified, if in the past, I don't remember what your legislative priorities look like, but if we identified the top 3 to 5 that we know are from your experience and work that you do over the year, that you know that we're going to get close to, or that we can really work, because you have advocates sitting on the board now who do the legwork for some of this stuff. And so if I would like to see it done like that. I'm not opposed to putting Polk County's statements, even if it's accompanied with studies that are done. I just don't want to put it, you know, on a piece of paper. Retaining 3rd grade is hurting children. I think they know that, you know what I mean? I think if we did some kind of study, or if we had that as a position, we worked on it to include that. But as far as the legislative priorities, making them smaller and using the ones that in your experience, because we all know, the ones that come back, that have been coming back, there's one coming back this year, third time around, fourth time around, it probably is gonna move. And if we had that as our priority, then it looks like a win-win, instead of coming in and saying, you know, we need $20 million, you're not gonna give it to us. You know what I mean? Like, I don't wanna be in that position.
Thank you. Ms. Reynolds?
To Lynn's point about legislators following kind of the leader of the pack, I think being up there with Wendy, our legislators do tend to rely on her, especially some of our newer legislators, and not just our delegation, but legislators from across the state. I don't know how many times Sarah and I got stopped with her from legislators that I didn't even recognize from South Florida that stopped Wendy in the hall to ask her a question. So I think that we do have a great resource in Wendy, and she is someone that our legislators have come to trust and rely on and call, even if they're not in our district, to say, hey, can you explain this to me? But I think that we have, especially some of our newer legislators, are tending to rely more on not only Wendy, but also I've gotten several calls from some of our legislators. So I think it is important to make sure that we're keeping it for things that are this year, because I do think that they'll call on those. I do agree with Billy that we can have an ongoing statement, but I think that we need to be meeting with our legislators when they're back in the district during the summer to say, this is what our goals are, these are our top 5 goals for education in general. This is what's gonna be our top 5 goals for education in general, but then having more specifics of this is what we wanna try and move this session when we meet with them, right before we start session each year. If that makes sense.
Ms. Fortney, then Ms. Fields.
I couldn't agree with Sarah Beth more on that, because, but I just wanted to look at number 3 and number 8, and maybe we could compromise a little bit. Instead of having those as goal type priorities, maybe just put those under the umbrella of unfunded mandates. Because I think we all agree that unfunded mandates, like, no matter what, and then it would be up to our expert here to describe how that impacts us, that kind of thing. And maybe we could squish in a couple more, like the statewide together. Looks like number 2 and 5. But number 7, I'm not willing to let go of, so I'll just say that.
And Ms. Fortney, just,
Yes.
yes, number 2, I'll tell you that, number 3, looking at the school safety, that is, on the superintendent's. That's on our platform.
So that's
because
statewide as well?
Yes, it is, that's a concern for us.
What else is
The
on
funding.
yours while you're?
Do you have a copy of that, Sarah Beth, for this, at least for
I
the
sent
SSBA?
FSBA
That's
can you
FSB.
forward it or do you?
Yeah. Trying to get my email back. Okay.
What's on the superintendent's platform?
Do you have
You
that?
said number 3 and what else?
We have number 3, we have FEFP, which is number 1.
Yes,
That's-
ma'am.
That's one of ours that we're looking at also.
Mm-hmm.
We're asking, we didn't put on our platform, but we've been talking about releasing the VAM when you have the data earlier, so that we don't have to do that when school starts.
So number 4.
Number 4, it's not on the
Yeah.
platform, but that is
Okay.
a conversation we've been having
Conversation,
as well.
okay.
We've been looking at increasing teacher salaries
Yes.
and how those funds are directed, where they're coming from. So
Is that something you can forward? Is that a
Super-
printable thing like FSBA is?
Let me get it, once we get it out of draft, we have one more meeting and I can send it to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay, Ms. Fields, I'm sorry.
One question, Ms. Wendy, when is this to be submitted?
Yeah.
As soon as it is approved at a board meeting, it will be our official document.
But there's no window of time.
I mean, the session starts in January.
January.
Mhm.
so-
They're
I'm
already
gonna
in
be in
committees.
2 weeks, 2 weeks in October, 2 weeks in November, and a week in December, so, I would like to submit this for the next board meeting for approval, and then go from there.
I would suggest that, we look at the priorities that Ms. Bird just mentioned, along with the coalition and the School Board Association, and see how we can intertwine ours with theirs, so that we'll have a stronger voice. And then maybe some of the items, I don't remember how many we had last year, but I thought we had like maybe 5, but I might be wrong.
Yeah.
And so we've gone from 5 to 8, and maybe find a way to do something different with the other 3 that we're not gonna have on the list and focus on 5. I would imagine that you meet with your peers on a regular basis, and so a lot of the items that we have here are statewide, I would imagine. And I wanna make sure that it's understood, in my opinion. You do a very good job for us. And I hear all the time how well respected you are. So we want to make sure that we continue to make progress in these areas, but we also want to make sure, in my opinion, that we utilize your experience and your expertise, along with the superintendent and her staff. Some of the items that we've discussed about 3rd grade retention, I think we need to make sure that we include staff on that, especially like Dr. Ates, because that's his area of expertise. It surely is not mine. So that's just my comments on it.
Would it be okay with the board if maybe I divided this into, get rid of number 6, start out with statewide issues and do the funding issues at the top, and then have a separate part at the bottom with Polk, priorities for Polk or something
like that,
along those lines?
Well, but priorities for Polk would be the first top group as well.
Right.
So you word it in such a way that,
Polk specific.
Is verbiage important?
Yeah.
yeah,
Mr. Townsend, then back to Ms. Reynolds.
I mean, ending 3rd grade retention is my #1 priority. Ending mandatory third grade, it hurts more of our kids than anything on this does. It is more immediately damaging to vulnerable children than anything we do. All research, and I'm sure Dr. X will agree with us, all research shows you make them worse readers and you ruin their lives. That's not a casual thing. That's urgent right now. It's been urgent for 20 years. We've ruined lives after lives after lives, and the data shows it, and everybody's ignored it for 20 years because people have been unwilling. Like, the record of local school boards is abysmal in advocacy. And it's because of discussions like this. Local school boards have failed miserably for 20 years to affect anything about this model in a positive way because they haven't been willing to say anything. The 76, 69 suit, y'all think I'm kidding about this. All we have is advocacy. Nothing else. That's it. And I want votes on these things. I mean, I think you hear what I mean. I'm certainly happy to have my stuff I want voted down. I get that. But to not say it because we think we won't win is madness. It is what has caused us to be where we are today. We have to hit things. Repetition matters. We are not dealing with the smartest people in the world in Tallahassee. You got to repeat things for them a lot, painfully. You got to inflict some pain on them, and you got to be clear. And anyway, that's my. It sounds like you're moving. I'll see what you come up with, and then is there a mechanism for adding stuff to that if we want to, or subtracting it? I mean, do we have something like that?
Add it to the platform?
Like when Wendy brings us her 6 or 5 or 6 things, can we add 1 or 2? Like can we have like votes on how to add or subtract stuff from that?
I think it sounds to me like we need a discussion of what our priorities are. What I'm hearing is we haven't had that discussion as a board.
Right.
And maybe we need to have that discussion. When are these due, Wendy? When do we have to have these?
There's really no due date.
Okay.
I mean, this is our guide for me during the legislative session, so,
So
sooner's better than later.
maybe we could
But-
schedule a work session, our next work session, to talk about what we want to see as our legislative priorities.
that would have been perfect for today. Right, because there's not much
We should
today.
have done, that's what
Yeah.
like the next time, we need to have a meeting ahead of this. It would have been perfect for the extended work session today.
Well, and we still can. We can talk about that. But so there's that, and then there's the other issue. I'm going to disagree with Mr. Townsend that the folks in Tallahassee aren't particularly bright. I think it's a different issue. I see it as being one of, having spent 16 years in the classroom, at the college level, one of the things I found is there's no such thing as common sense. we all have areas of expertise that we're very knowledgeable about and very much down in the weeds in, and then there are areas that I know nothing about. So terms that may be common to someone else are completely foreign to me.
I'll agree with that. You phrased it more elegantly.
So those terms may be completely uncommon to me, and they're foreign to me. I don't understand them. I don't get them. So what I'm hearing here is that we've got 3 different places where legislative priorities are coming from. They're coming from local school boards. They're coming from the superintendent's coalition. They're coming from the Florida school boards. And I assure you, when we bring them 8, and the superintendent's coalition brings them 8, and the Florida school, that sounds like 50 different things. They don't hear it as the same thing. That's why I'm saying somehow we have to find a way to coordinate that so it's very clear and we're all saying the same thing, because in many cases we are. And look, I understand again that you have it. And let me, before I go on, let me say I think you're doing a wonderful job. I think you're one of the top advocates in the state of Florida for education, and certainly represent this district incredibly well. So I understand this may not be something you can affect, but I think that would be my priority. How do we get on the same page and make sure we're sending the same message across the board? So when they hear it, it's the same 3 or 4 things, and it doesn't sound like 50 different things to them. We get it because we hear these terms all the time, but they don't. So they're completely foreign to them. They have no clue what they're hearing. They don't understand. They don't put, when we say FEFP, that could be purchasing land in South Florida. They don't know. So I think that's got to be a priority, is figuring out how do we deliver the same message consistently across the board. And I don't know how we do that, but I would like us to have a conversation about it. I think what I'm hearing with the board here is that we also may have some ideas about how to, we may have some differences in opinion about what we want to see, but also how do we clean it up a little bit, right? And how do we make it more consistent? So when would we like to have that conversation?
As soon as possible. Yeah.
Do we want to do that as part of the roundtable discussion?
I'm not staying for the roundtable, so it needs to be on a work session day.
You want to do it now?
We need to
Right
do
now,
it
but I
now,
think we need
so
to
we
do it
can.
today.
I think we
so
need to do it now.
Are we in agreement? You want to do it right
Staff is
now? The staff, do we want to move? Is that
Or
okay
do you want
with
to do it after,
Superintendent?
at the end of all these job descriptions?
I'll
To get the
defer to
people,
you.
to get the folks
I mean, this is.
out of here
I've got to step out at 10, but we can do it
after that, I'm saying, at the
We
end.
scheduled time today, like whoever is going to
Right.
be available.
Okay, so
Right.
Superintendent Byrd said she'd like to continue with the agenda and then move it to
Yes,
the
that's what I'm
boss.
saying. Yep, perfect.
So we'll do that. So can you come back a little later?
To be continued.
Yes.
Okay, so the next item we had on Ms. Porteous had to step out. So what I'm gonna do we have, item 5? I know she had to step out. Ms. Usher,
Okay,
we'll bring Ms. Usher up and then she'll come back.
please. I had asked Richard to join me, but I,
Sasha, I'll sit with you.
okay.
Ms. Michael, you want to sit?
Thank you so much, how kind. Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here to discuss the possible consolidation of Frostproof Elementary with Ben Hill Griffin Junior School at Ben Hill Griffin campus and get directive from you. Okay, just some background on Frostproof Elementary. It was built in 1950, even though we have a classroom building from 1937. The capacity is 583, enrollment at 433 with a 74% utilization, and it's on approximately 8 acres. Ben Hill Griffin was built in 1992 on 26 acres, so quite a big site. Its capacity 546, enrollment 429, utilization at 78%. This is the proposal we have to add 26 classrooms on Ben Hill Griffin campus. That will add about 520 new seats for a total capacity at Ben Hill Griffin at 1,066, and make the school pre-K to 5th. Then at Frostproof Elementary, we want to repurpose Frostproof Elementary School campus, move all the students to Ben Hill Griffin, demolish the buildings, keeping building 15 because the state will not allow us to demolish that through the custody. Remodel building 15 into a varsity or locker room or field house for Frostproof High School, and the remainder of the site to be used for parking for the stadium for Frostproof High. So overall, with the enrollment for 2 schools, it will be 862. The total capacity 1,066, with a utilization of about 80%, which allows some room for growth, even though that area is not growing quickly, but it does allow for some room. Now, Mr. Hill, do you want to talk about this slide, please?
Yes. So on August 21st, we, Michelle Townley actually, and Ms. Porteous met with the staff at Ben Hill Griffin and explained what we want to do and fielded questions, had a very good, positive meeting with them. On the 22nd, Ms. Townley and myself met with Frostproof Elementary and their staff and did the same process. On the 22nd, we did have the community meeting as well in Frostproof. Our chair, I'll hit it as I lead in, you can double back on it.
Okay.
So Mr. Wilson was with us in that meeting, and basically Ms. Townley, along with Ms. Usher and her team, did an excellent job of presenting this recommendation and what we would like to do for that community and with these schools. It was an excellent meeting. I thought we did an excellent job of answering their questions. Ms. Townley, Ms. Usher did a tremendous job down there. In regards to some of the key benefits, it will minimize transition for students. And while I'm learning the K-5 side of the work, one of the things that we noted was the transition. Typically, they don't have to face those K-5s, don't have to face the transition until they get to middle school. And then, of course, they get another transition to high school. Right now, we have students, those K-2, those second graders are transitioning in their 3rd grade year. And as we know, as Mr. Townsend said earlier, that's a very pivotal year for those 3rd graders based on the state requirements and retention possibilities. So, according to our elementary experts, minimizing the transitions for children would be a big part of what we can do to improve that. Improving the conditions for family engagement. You bring them together as one pre-K-5 community, and it just enhances the connection. Increased collaboration for teachers and staff. This really provides some flexibility, and what it does is it allows a leader to connect that staff, and those staff work very well together in team-oriented fashion and capitalizing on that collaborative process. Flexibility for instructional decisions. This is also very important. It just allows you to align your personnel with the resources and really bring all of it together to connect. And then it does support that K-5 continuum, which allows you to make sure that you have the whole continuum there for those supports, tutoring pieces, like I mentioned, resources, and pulls those teams together. So you got the teachers, pairs, all those folks working very well together. The one thing that was a concern for some is the possibility of, retaining some of the teachers. Are we going to lose some of the staff? Are they going to have to be relocated? In our preliminary, when we're looking at it, we really do not anticipate a large number of displacements or movement with staff. And certainly we will work with our staffing plan and the collective bargaining agreement to ensure that for the few that may have to, we'll be very thoughtful about how we do that.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Okay, just some comparison between the 2 schools. It cost us double to maintain Frostproof than Ben Hill Griffin, and that does not include the major capital projects we have to do there. Some positive, it'll decrease by the combination, decrease operation costs, decrease maintenance costs. Talking to transportation, they'll only have to stop at one campus, and it provides for a better utilization of the school. As Mr. Hill said, we did have a community meeting on August 22nd, and overall it was positive. No one said, no, we don't want it, they just had several questions. They want to ensure that frost proof is shown somewhere in the Ben Hill Griffin in name.
Very important.
Yes, they wanted to know the plan, if it's a one-story, two-story, and we have not decided on that, if it'll be one-story, two-story. They want to make sure that all the amenities will remain, like the covered play area and the open field, and that is yes, it will. We won't be taking anything from Ben Hill Griffin. There's sufficient capacity to accommodate future growth, and we talked about that before, we will allow for that. If it is due to environmental concerns at Frostproof Elementary, and no, it's not environmental concerns, it's the maintenance class, the maintenance cost and the effective use of our facilities. Will there be some type of marker? Who will the principal be? They ask if we have sufficient core area for the dining, and that is, we do. We have dining in 3 seatings for over 1,000 students. So it was just more information they wanted, not any objection to it. And that's it. Sorry, Mr.
Mr. Wilson?
And it was very important to them that they continue that bookstore program.
Yes, that's true,
Yes.
right. They want to continue. Thank you for mentioning
Yeah,
that.
so we want to make sure that we do that. That seems to be
Right, that's correct.
important to them.
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
can tell you,
Did
Ms.
she just
Townley's,
answer-
Ms. Townley's very much aware of that, for sure.
Did you say who would be the principal, or,
No.
No.
oh,
They were
but they
asking.
wanted to know?
They wanted to
They
know,
sure.
but so Mrs. Downey said we'll come back with that information.
Ms. Reynolds?
I know you said this was their questions. Most of them, did you have the answers for them that night? Is there a means of providing them the answers that you didn't have?
We answered all their questions that
Okay.
night.
They were,
We
Other than
did.
the
they were
principal.
very pleased with the answers, and the ones that we could not answer, we just had given, we cannot answer them at this time.
Right, and who's the principal?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the big one. Who's going to be the principal?
And then now.
Ms. Fortney? Then Ms. Fields?
About how many staff would be displaced?
When I talked to Ms. Townley, I met with her again this morning and talked with her about it. You know, we're really, if we displace staff, it'll be very minimal. We talked about possibly, there's a few positions that you might not be able to replicate. For example, head custodial staff, you know. How do you work through that? But you look at it, you try to work through it. That would be an example. But as of right now, it's very, very minimal.
Ms. Fortney, you're talking about classroom teachers. Remember, those kids are going, so the teachers are going.
Right, I
You're
meant
gonna
staff,
have
though,
some
you're right.
attrition.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And of course, you wouldn't have typically 2 principals in that scenario. So there would be a minimum.
2 APs.
Yeah.
Why not, Mr. Hill?
Well,
We would rather have teachers in the classroom.
Okay, right. So did you explain what's gonna happen to the acreage in the old elementary? It seems like there was a slide back there, it said it was gonna be used for, can you remind me of that again?
It'll be made part of Frostproof High School campus.
Okay,
We don't have any parking there for the stadium.
so that to me is a real positive,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I like the marker idea too.
okay.
Ms. Fields and Ms. Townsend and Mr. Wilson.
Okay, I know that this will have to be a vote approved by the board, is that correct?
Right, they'll bring it
Okay.
back based on your directive.
Okay, I just wanna make sure.
Mhm.
And then I wanted to, kind of piggyback on Ms. Fortney about the possible displacement. And when will we know that? Because I'm sure that there's discussion among staff and uneasiness, I would think. Especially if we proceed with this, when will we know exactly whether or not there will be any displacements and how many? And how will the staff be notified?
Those are great questions. So obviously, once we get the green light to move forward, then we'll utilize our staffing plan when we make our projections. Once those projections are made and we know the total number of staff needed, then we'll know where we sit with staff and the possibility of those that may, have to be relocated. So we will certainly notify them in advance once those are determined, and we would meet with them in person to discuss their options.
I think this will be very important.
Very important.
Let's just move
And
forward.
just, Ms. Fields, the 2 meetings that I ran with the staff was very, Michelle did a very nice job of answering those questions and talking through that with them. So I think they felt valued and appreciated, and did get their questions answered. And you're right, that is obviously going to typically be a concern.
Thank you.
Mrs. Fields, just to follow up on what Mr. Hill has said, we'll likely notify those people sometime in mid to late spring. We'll look to see what positions are double staffed at that point, and then really make contact with them and tell them what their options are. We're hoping that some people move through attrition and through the natural process, and so for those that don't, we'll make sure that they do land well somewhere else.
Thank you, this is gonna be critical. Transportation, I think I saw a slide where you're saying that there's gonna be less, are there gonna be less kids, transported? How's the transportation piece gonna work, and
Mrs.
Can
Fields, I
somebody
talked to
explain that?
transportation and they said the same bus they use to take the students to Ben Hill Griffin, they take to Frost Proof. So this will ease it that they'll take all the students to one location.
Versus instead of two, right?
Yes.
what's the timeline?
It depends on the directive from you. If,
Is it 6 months, is it a year?
okay. Ideally, I wanted it by August 2020, but it's kind of late now. So I think the earliest we can have this done would be January 21.
Thank you.
Mr. Townsend?
If it's approved.
So you mean the earliest that we could have the buildings built and all, so we could do it that fast? That seems fairly fast to me, actually, so, like.
Yes, we can. We did Laufman in
We did Laufman.
a few
we
months.
did, okay,
Mhm.
okay, good.
She's good.
How far apart are they? How, like, physically, how far apart are the schools?
Oh,
It's a couple miles.
couple miles.
Yeah.
So it's not like, you're not like going from way
No,
out,
it's
I
not
mean,
really-
Frostburg's not a
No.
real large town
I'm
to
just
begin
curious,
with,
how did we end up with 2 down there anyways? I'm just
That's a long
curious.
story.
That's long before
Long
me.
story,
Long
okay,
story.
yeah,
It is
long
a
before
long
me
story.
At
too.
lunch.
One suggestion related to maybe the non-instructional staff would be if there are open positions like custodial or whatever at Frostproof High or at and the middle school is part of Frostproof High, right? Like
Yes.
like maybe so
Middle
that's
senior.
so maybe they get preference there if they want to. And why, if we're serving the same amount of kids, why would we lose instructional positions? Like I'm.
But we're not anticipating.
So it's the idea that
It's
we would not.
non-instructional.
Okay, so it's not instructional. Okay,
Non-instructional.
okay.
And just keep in mind, as Portia said, some of it be through attrition, but anytime we do projects like this, we always offer staff, if they want to volunteer to get closer to home or closer locations, we always offer that up to them as well, because this is something that we're doing that they didn't have any control or say over. So we always try to offer that. I think I went Mr. Wilson and then Ms. Cunningham, and I can't remember.
Well, and I was just going to make a comment. The only negative comment I heard, or it wasn't a negative comment, it was a concern, was that when they turned the current school to a parking lot, there was one parent who was concerned about the increased traffic flow during football games. But that was really the only.
And then it went down. It'd make it better, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think it would make it
Graduation is
better.
insane.
So that was really the only significant concern that I heard. Would you agree? Oh, did you
They
hear something?
mentioned it, but I didn't see it as a concern. They'll have parking instead of
Yeah.
parking far off,
Eh.
and so I think it will help a lot by providing them with parking adjacent to the stadium.
Yeah, no, I think the parent was concerned, but I would agree. Instead of parking on their property, now they'll be parking in the
Right.
slot, right? So,
I think the explanation helped a
Yeah.
little bit with that.
Ms. Cunningham?
Thank you. A couple thoughts. One is, having watched Michelle Townley in action, I feel she's one of the best regional,
Assistance.
thank you,
Superintendent.
I'm not big on titles, regional assistant superintendents that we have. I know that she has a heart and compassion for people unlike anything I've ever seen. So I personally feel very comfortable that as we work through the personnel opportunities, that she's going to treat them with the utmost delicacy, because that's just who she is. So that being said, I feel like I understand you can't have 2 heads of anything, so it's going to have to be work, but there are opportunities, as he mentioned, for, Frostproof Middle Senior High School. My first comment. My second comment is, I understand and I can see where the vision would be good from effective efficiency standpoints for transportation, also for education for kids, being in the same school, same leaders, working their way on up. My question is, though, in light of the economic times in which we are, can we afford the capital expenditures to make this happen, is my only question. Is there enough of a rate of return on the efficiency going down the road to make that investment?
I would say yes, certainly,
You
Mrs.
would.
Cunningham.
You
Because
would.
the high maintenance costs, like I said, we have a building here from 1937, and it will cost us a lot. It'll cost us about 13 million. I thought it was less because I was using the Loftman count,
Yes.
which is only 16 classrooms.
Right.
But overall, we will save on so many things that I think it would be worth it, the cost benefit.
You
The
do
benefit
feel,
will be more.
do you know what how many years for that rate of return to, is it 3,
no.
5?
I do not know. We just have to take the 13 million and compare it to the maintenance cost of frost-proof and all the savings that we'll get, not just in facilities, but in
Yes, ma'am.
academic also.
Yeah, I understand.
And see those
Right.
savings and how much to come up to the 13 million. I don't know what all those savings, the cost will be.
So you're projecting the new school, the addition to the existing school will be about 13 million? Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Courtney, then Mr. Townsend.
I don't know, but I'm quite sure that the people of Frostproof are thrilled to finally get something maybe newer and improved, and those kids moving into brand new classrooms can only be a positive. The instructional staff can only be a positive. I'm sure it's gonna come with better technology and energy efficiency and all that other good stuff. So I would see that is a return that we can't value enough, personally, monetarily. My second comment is, does the band get anything out of this? Do they get a new marching field or, practice field or,
It all
because
depends
that
on,
fellow works hard down there. He really does.
all depends on cost, because all those things we can look at, but
Yeah, I just want to put a plug in for the band directors because they are the most overworked, recognized folks. Yeah.
and we have Mr. Milhorn here, who you maintain that school, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Frostproof, and complains every day.
Needs a lot.
There you go.
Very, very
Mr.
briefly,
Townsend?
have you guys connected with Frostproof City Government on this?
No, I will. I wanted to present it first, then I will have a meeting with the city manager. We're
Because
required
you
to
never
do
know
that.
you never know what complications
Yeah,
might
but
emerge from
we're
that. So I
required
just
for
wanted-
statutes to meet with them, so.
Or
I will.
assistance.
Right.
Okay?
Do we need a consensus? Is that?
I guess
we have
that's
one.
just thumbs up, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there consensus to move
Oh,
forward?
yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you so
Robertson, oh,
much.
yes,
Thank
okay.
you for doing your due diligence
Thank you.
with the community. Most
Thank you.
important.
Now we'll go back up
Denise, thanks for putting
Where
on
are
the
we now?
slideshow for me.
to items
Yeah,
2,
2.
3, and 4, which are all under Human Resources Division. And Ms. Porteous will be bringing those to you.
Good morning.
Morning.
We have 3 job descriptions before you today. All 3 of these job descriptions were previously approved in the staffing plan that you approved in August of this year. The first is a Senior Director of Discipline. The second is a Senior Tech Labor Relations, and the third is a Senior Tech Employee Relations.
Any questions?
Okay,
Ms. Fields?
question on the senior director of discipline, is that position currently being held by someone?
No, it is a new position. It's actually a part of the behavior plan that was presented to you by, I think, Dr. Steinke, Mr. Hill, and Brett Butler earlier this year. It's a position that was built into that plan specifically, but it is a vacant position. It's a new position.
So we're getting ready to advertise for that position once
Yes,
this is
ma'am.
approved?
After it is approved at today's meeting, I will go ahead and advertise for that position.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, here we go with these salary grades again. I'm just like, when I looked at that, so when on this, I'm just for my own personal clarification. So it says 22.1 admin. Is that countywide or is that district-wide as far as this steps? Like annual is 104,658. And it's under salary grade 22.1 admin.
Correct.
So is that, when it says admin, is that district administration?
Yes.
It's not school site?
So what it means is, there are two sets of salary grades. One is for school-based administrators, and you'll see that on the salary pages of human resources. And then the other is for district-based personnel.
And this is
so this is
district.
for a district-based personnel that is not necessarily tied to a school site, meaning it's not a principal.
And
it's
how do
not
the
an
steps work, Ms. Porteous? Like, do they automatically get a step every year, or do they?
No, so district-based administration really only receive a step or a raise if Mrs. Bird pretty much agrees to it. And that is usually after teachers have received raises and after AFSCME has received their raises as well. So if you think about it in terms of order, it would be like the
Okay.
teachers AFSCME and then district-based. And generally, the raises that are provided are usually less than or equal to what teachers and
Like
AFSCME
percentage-wise?
receive. Percentage-wise, correct.
And then my last question, because I'm really trying to understand this. My last question is, so let's say we hire somebody off the street, not in-house. Would they start at step one?
It depends on their previous experience,
Yeah.
so generally if you have.
And where do you find that at? Like, what would constitute them getting paid step one versus step 30?
I don't know very many senior directors that are at step 30.
Yeah, okay,
number
good.
one. Number two.
Because I'm
I don't
putting
know that
this
there are
and.
any, but if you look at page 3 of 3, education experience and or certification requirements,
Right,
so generally what we look at, those are the minimum qualifications for the position. So that's the very basic, or those
Gotcha.
are the basic qualifications or requirements that they need. Anything in addition to that or over that. So let's say we found a fantastic candidate from Atlanta Public Schools. I don't know, I'm just making that up. But,
Right.
if we found a fantastic candidate that did a similar or the same job there, then we would give them 2-for-1 credit, which means for every 2 years, they get 1 level. It's no longer steps, it's levels. So 1 level of credit. Let's say they worked there for 20 years, so that would be equivalent to 10 levels, and then we would place them at salary.
Doing
at
that
level
job.
10. Doing that job,
Right.
correct. And so that is, again, verifiable experience, so I just can't take their word for it. Let's say it is Mrs. Bird, I can't take her word for it, she would have to provide a
Gotcha.
verification of
that helps a lot,
job
Tedra,
duties.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
I've been curious how that all works,
Oh, yeah.
thank you.
Ms. Reynolds?
I just was, there's also if they have a higher degree, if there's
Correct,
additional
so right, this
levels of
requires a
that.
master, so if they have a
Right.
specialist or
Or
if
a
they have a
doctorate.
doctorate, that's another, they usually get additional steps or levels, excuse me, for that as well.
That still says, it still says steps on there, just,
Any other questions?
We just still
Ms.
say-
Fields and then Ms. Cunningham.
I reviewed the job descriptions for the technicians, senior technicians now, it looked like they had a lot of added duties.
Yes, ma'am.
And who was doing those duties before? Were they doing the duties and just not getting compensated?
Yeah.
No, they've not been doing the duties at all. We did some restructuring in my office. And so, quite honestly, when we hired the last investigator, we had a really, really hard time filling that position. It was out there for quite a while. So I kind of thought of what we needed to do in growing our own with the elite program. Let me figure out if we can grow our own, provide that person with lower level investigations. Right now, we're about at 150 investigations to 200 investigations per year. I can get that exact number for you. But I wanted to train someone to do our investigations, because doing investigations for a municipality is very different than doing investigations for a criminal system.
Ms. Cunningham?
Thank you. This has got nothing to do with what's up here. I mentioned a little bit of something at the retreat and don't know where we stand, but I was wondering if we're going to be doing something proactively about hiring some additional programming staff in our IT department. I understand we've lost quite a few over the years, and it's affecting the district as a whole. So, and I know that's probably not something that you're going to bring to us, but I just want to keep it out there because it's really, really important that we look at that. And from an HR perspective, why we're losing, what can we do to retain? Is there something that we can do to help? That sort of thing, rather than us becoming the training ground for private industry.
So essentially, I know that Dr. Barrios has posted all of her positions, and I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
she's in the last stages of hiring for her last position, so she has one more position to hire for. I think that is the most difficult position to fill, from my understanding. From a HR perspective, one of the
Yes.
things that we did last year was we looked overall at our salary. So we did a compensation study for the IT department, meaning I looked at not only public sector, but private sector as well. And then we looked at it here in Polk County. So City of Lakeland, Polk County, Board of County Commissioners, City of Winter Haven, and then we also looked at private sector that were similarly, or that are similar size as well. And from that, we've determined that we are a bit underpaid. And so Mrs. Berg and I are looking at trying to increase those salaries, given our budget or budgetary restrictions. So how we can do that and,
Well, and here's something too.
Mhm.
When key people leave, and this is something I've been saying for over a year now,
Mhm.
I want to make sure, and a programming person, you know, who's been vested with us for X amount of years, whether or not we do some type of exit interview to determine, was it just money? Was it, I don't know, whatever it may be. I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouth because I haven't talked to anybody about this, but I just think we need to be really proactive in that area
all of them
and do
did-
what we need to. All of them did?
all of them did exit surveys, yes ma'am.
So what do you do with that data? If they tell you why I'm leaving, it's one thing to get the information, go, great, thank you, appreciate you coming. It's another thing to compile that data and say, okay, here's some things that maybe we can do to be impactful in that department to help us from others perhaps doing the same thing. I'm trying to say, are we learning from the surveys?
Yes, ma'am, we are. So Dr. Barrios is well aware. She also did a full exit interview with them,
Okay.
with the programmers. And so she is very well aware of the data in terms of why they left and what we can do to increase their retention here, or what we can do to be proactive to make sure that it doesn't continue to happen.
Okay, I may want to learn a little bit more about that, but I'll go through superintendent at a later time because I think it's really important. So
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Well, and I agree with Ms. Cunningham. I think that's incredibly important. And I'd like to offer this, and you're the experts in this area, so I defer to you, of course, but it seems to me what I keep hearing is that the question we're asking is why are you leaving? I think a better question is what can we do to retain
Exactly.
people like you? Because I may not want to tell you that I'm not happy with with leadership because whatever the reason might be, it's too political or whatever it might be. I may not want to tell you that I'm leaving for more money, but I might be willing to say, I think you can retain people in this area if you do these things. So that might be more helpful. And again, I only offer that because as I listen, what I hear is, why are you leaving? And I'm not sure people respond to that very well.
Well, actually, one of the things that's on my platform for this year is conducting what are called stay interviews. So it's really looking at what are called irreplaceable applicants or candidates or employees rather, talking to them about why they're staying, what are the reasons that they're staying, what do they like, what don't they like, and then taking that and applying that into
I know.
applying that to their, and providing that one data to their hiring manager or director, and then really using that to redesign how we do our business here. So it's a state interview though.
Ms. Cunningham?
Would there be a way for us to see the questions of the exit interviews that we're giving out our employees? Somebody told me it was a one question, essentially, why are you leaving?
Oh, wait a minute.
Sentence.
We sent
Can I miss?
Did you send it out?
They're in
Yeah, she did.
screenshots that are sideways.
It's hard to
and they're-
read.
You
It's
can't
very
read them.
Okay. So what we'll try to do is scan it and send it.
Sure,
That
that's
would be
great.
awesome.
Thank you.
We
I
scan it.
appreciate it.
May
Okay.
I?
Wait, we
Superintendent
scan.
Burt, I have that hard copy.
Okay.
Two.
You want to give that one?
Well, can you share it? Can you share it with
Give
us?
us a copy.
Well, I guess.
Send it
Miss
to,
Wendy got it for me.
send it to Ms.
Okay.
Worthington and she can just.
Okay.
Okay, thank
She
you.
has it, yeah.
Ms. Fields?
But that's a good exit survey. I don't care what, it's not one.
It's not one
It's
sentence?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm. Thank you.
Historically, we've had problems with retaining IT folks for a long time. when Abdul was the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, we had the same issue that we're having
Sure.
today. And we've had discussion about how we can fix it, and it's always comes down to the money factor.
It is money.
And whether or not we want to invest to get their wages up where it's decent and not losing them to places like Publix or whatever. So it's not anything new, and I think one of the biggest challenges was if you do it for one group, what about the other groups that are underpaid? And I think that has always been the issue and the dilemma. So if that's going to be something that you guys are going to propose, you're going to need to look at all of that and see how that's going to work.
Ms. Cunningham?
And I understand that it's nothing new, but what is new, there are some other issues that have come up that I have been made aware of. So I think there are other things besides the money. Let me just say that. That's why I'm asking for some more information. Because yes, it's been that way for years, and I know that, but it's getting worse every year in the numbers that are leaving. And there are some other things that I think could be incorporated into the work environment to make people stay. And I think it's one of those things we just have to learn about, learn from, grow from, and try to build that into their work environment. And I'll leave it at that.
Good point.
Mr. Wilson? And again, I'm going to concur completely with that. I think it is an ever-changing environment. And one of the things that I hear, especially from IT people, is you can be creative. You know, there's some organizations say you have to be in your seat 40 hours a week, in your seat. Well, with IT folks, they can do their jobs from home. So if we're a little creative and say, hey, if you need to work from home sometimes, I think that can play a big part in whether or not you can keep them. Those kinds of creative things that maybe we just need to ask questions about and see what can we do to make this job a little more attractive.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That concludes the discussion part. We have two information items. You have the Head Start report, and we also have the professional learning catalog, which is our standards. And Dr. H, can you just explain a little bit about that? That is something that's coming before them. I believe for some of our new board members, maybe the first time.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Briefly.
I like the name change. I do.
Good morning.
Makes more sense.
One of the things that Ms. Burt has alluded to with the board is the change, I guess, a little bit in position with the Department of Education in ensuring that we take care of certain items within our requirements. And one of the things that we do have that is new is the professional standards that have been updated for PD. Ms. Joe's team's been actively working on our PD catalog to make sure that those standards are aligned in that, and also in everything we do with PD. So while it is I will say, a requirement, something that we have to do, at the same time, I think it's our approach on how we try to ensure that when we're working with adults that we use the best approach. And so we kind of take a positive view at it, and Ms. Joe could actually share with you the changes in those standards and how we've applied them not only to the catalog but our approach, if you have any questions about it.
Well, my first question is, it says 1819.
It is for the 1920, they approved it in July. So that will be, that would be 1920 for the 1920.
So this is for 19?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Because I did already read it.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are two
Thank you.
information items, and the chair would like to take 10, 15.
Well, I'll say 10 minutes,
10
but
minute
it
break.
really
10-minute
depends
break?
on when the board members get back.
Okay, 15. We'll say 10.
We'll say 10 minutes.
Start with
Okay,
10.
10-minute break.
Start with 10. So we're ready to get started again.
He's been way too much time.
We do have an item of old business before we go back to the legislative priorities, and that is setting a date for the master board training. We need to do that, correct, Ms. Worthington? Okay. So we have some options on the table, and I just need some input from the board as to when you'd like to do that.
The 3rd of December, I think, was one of the options. It's the FSBA legislative meeting, directors meeting, and start of the annual conference.
The
So if we
Third?
could not do December 3rd,
Okay.
either, any of the rest, right?
So we have,
Are good.
December 3rd is off the table, so we have January 1st or February 4th, February 5th.
I can't do the fifth, I can do it any other day.
January what?
January
Oh,
21st
not
or
third.
February.
No.
January,
I-
January
I don't think
21st or
first.
February 4th and 5th. January 21st, excuse me.
I mean, the 21st looks good.
Yeah,
Looks good to me.
21st looks good. 21st looks good.
How's the 21st look for everybody?
Okay,
Okay?
and that's, where's the location?
I
be
think
determined.
that's yet to be determined,
Okay,
to be determined,
somewhere in Polk.
Mm-hmm.
yes. Well, we don't necessarily have to do it here, but probably.
Okay.
So, so we have a date, it's January 21st. Everybody okay with that? Okay, thank you. All right, so we're gonna move back now to the legislative
5th is
priorities discussion. And Ms. Dodge, if you could help us and maybe, I don't know, help us guide this discussion.
Sure. So based on the earlier discussion, I passed out to each of you an updated list of priorities. I've divided it into statewide and then district targeted priorities. And if you're not, we can massage that language if you'd like to. But I think that this reflects what I would ask is that we move forward with this document. And then, as a board and as a district, possibly we could do something very similar to what FSBA is doing, where they have their issue-by-issue priorities, and then they have their position statements. And if you'll give us some time, I think that, we should talk to cabinet and our staff about some of the position statements that you're discussing, and let us make sure, let us see where we are. It's one thing to say, that these issues have the impact, and it's another thing our staff knows where the studies are and those types of things. So, and I just wanted to reassure everybody that even though this is our platform, every year issues come up that we don't have on our platform. Bills are filed, and I always, if it's an academic issue, I always go to Mrs. Bird and Dr. Akes. And they help me, we're on the phone sometimes, so god awful time in the morning. But I'm always prepared to discuss those issues because we don't just always know what's gonna come up. And I think, I've been doing this a long time. I know that if third grade retention comes up as an issue, I don't have to ask. I know where you guys are on that issue. And so I know to go to Dr. Akes and get the studies and find out what the language that is being proposed does to our students. So I don't want you to think that just because something's not on our platform, that it's not something that I work on or that I don't understand what the board and the superintendent's priorities are on some of these issues, other issues that aren't directly on the platform.
And certainly I have tremendous respect for the superintendent and her staff, but the board is being asked to vote on this, so I think it's important that we have a comprehensive board discussion about it as well.
I agree.
Right? Ms. Cunningham?
Just would like to run something by you. Just looking at this, shouldn't our priorities be first on the page?
Yeah, probably.
And then maybe put statewide priorities in alignment with Polk, or is that what you were trying to say? Help me.
Yeah, I was trying to divide them up, and I probably should have put ours first.
I'm kind of thinking when you walk in, they're going to look at the top part. So the question is, which group are our top priorities? I'm assuming it would be the bottom.
And I think that was,
Bottom three, am I right? Or no?
I think that was kind of the suggestion I had. I think that was my suggestion, but I agree. I have no problem switching it.
Was your suggestion to have
Statewide priorities first.
first?
Yeah,
Oh,
that was my
okay.
suggestion.
It's the context of,
Okay.
if we say salaries, not bonuses, as a very simple
Right,
point of view, that's a statewide issue,
I
but
see.
it's intensely important here.
here as well. I
Right,
got it.
so like
Okay.
it's now, if we get into something that's a little more specific and you don't
Yes.
want, then maybe we.
Then maybe
but
we do
it's-
that.
It's the context.
Got it. Okay, leave it the way it is then.
Ms.
I stand to
Reynolds?
be corrected.
I'm good.
Okay. So we're having conversation about the legislative priorities.
So, again, with respect, I've done the work on third grade retention. I've researched it a lot. You know, I've looked at how the data, I've done a lot of work on this. I'm quite content to say outside of staffing, it's probably the number one most damaging thing the state does. It hurts people in our schools every day. And I want to be on the record through my position as a school board member with the public and through the board of urging the board to take a very clear stand that we think this is harmful and should be stopped. Do I think they will stop it this year? Probably not, but who knows? I know they won't if we don't tell them to. They're not going to do it on their own. And I think that's what I think is the mistake of this whole discussion sometimes. We start negotiating with ourselves before we ever go to them. I mean, you're never going to get a reasonable compromise. Like if we go immediately to the compromise position on VAM, which is get it out in time so we don't have to disrupt anything, then we're already moving inside of that compromise. Our position should be it has no role whatsoever, and let them compromise at getting it out on time. You know, like it's so my. I mean, there are like four things I would like very simply say, and as simple as this: salaries, not bonuses. I don't care what they call the bonus. I don't care where the bonus is coming from. Salaries, not bonuses, should be a priority. In mandatory third grade retention should be a priority. I mean, it is a priority for me, and I'm happy to have that voted on. In VAM's use in teacher evaluation and punishment, no more unfunded compliance, no more unfunded mandates, period. We should just say it. I mean, the fear of actually saying what we mean is one of the problems that we face, and there's nothing wrong with putting those four things, bang, 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 bang. I mean, we can add other things, but then you can get specific underneath about what kind of, about how you address those things, but those should be like our guiding principles for right now. I mean, I'd also like to add, change, study why kids don't grow in the Florida system on test performance or anything else. I mean, they just don't. We've got the worst growth in the country, and we should be pushing them. We're down here. We should be pushing them to study that. So I mean, I guess that would be my fifth thing.
All right, so Mr. Townsend has indicated some things he'd like to see changed as our legislative priorities, and so let's take those one at a time. What was the first one?
Salaries, not bonuses.
Salaries, not bonuses? How do we as a board feel about that?
I agree.
I think that,
Ms. Cunningham?
That's okay, finish your thoughts.
I think that we need to make a list of ongoing priorities that we meet with them on when they're not in session, when they're home for recess. But I think we need to move forward on legislative platform in the form that it's currently in. Making some minor adjustments I'm okay with, but I think that we don't need to totally reinvent what's already been done.
Ms. Cunningham?
Okay, so we're talking at the 11th hour, essentially.
Right, that's my problem.
That's where I'm at. Okay, so I hear what you're saying. I wrote them all down. What I would like to see in these work sessions is discussion by staff. Talk to us about salaries and not bonuses. How does HR view that? How does superintendent? I know that we're a board, but I feel that we're not independent of the people that work with us in our staffing. So I'm trying to say, today, there's just not a lot going on this agenda item. Had we had staff or somebody to present, or end grade, third grade retention, I would happen to agree. How do you write that positively? What is the research on it? That's how I would like us to approach these items. Does that make sense? I agree.
Not really, no.
You don't. See, I want to talk about it with staff, and I want to see the research that backs up what we have to say. So when Wendy goes up there and they go, hey, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. In that case, let's say then we can say, you know, they had a work session, they discussed it, Dr. Akes brought in whatever, and then we develop it. Because I know you've done a lot of research. I haven't, other than my practical experience, if you will, and personal with some of this stuff. And to say no more unfunded mandates, oh my gosh, we've been preaching that since I've been on the board. Is anybody listening? No, but.
Have we ever said it?
Have we
on
said it?
paper?
No. Okay,
We have said it on paper.
we have,
Elon was the figure.
right? Yeah, but it's been a long time. So anyways, so that's kind of my thought. I would like to see us start to explore ideas like this and actually have time at a work session to talk about them and say, hey, Superintendent, how do you feel? Staff, what have you learned in these particular areas? Bring it to us. Yes, we vote on it, whatever we do, consensus it, and then maybe it goes on, what did you say? Later on as a what?
I think just
In the future?
yeah, in the future when they're home, May
Yes.
through,
In
I mean, this year
2025.
it'll
The
be
position statement.
Yeah, as a position
Of our
statement or
long-term- as a
whatever.
position
Yeah,
statement
because
that's-
I'm at like the 11th hour here. I want to
When they're
discuss
home.
these. She moved them all around. I think it looks better when you walk in. You got to succinct. Here's my top 4, whatever.
Session starts when?
January.
January, but she's in
The
committee
committee
meetings
started
started
a month ago.
last
Last
2
week.
weeks.
Okay, Ms. Miller?
They're just now getting like the legislative updates. They're just now like getting into those at the very beginning, but this isn't windy. This is kind of, as a new board member, I've seen all along with things. It's the last hour on everything. I would like to see discussions. I would like to show them not only is third grade retention. You know, we can look at the national studies. I would like to connect it to Polk.
Yes.
But we're gonna have to be honest with our data as well.
Yes.
We're gonna have to have honest conversations that may not sound like our, usually we spit them out, but it's what does that happen? Have we followed third grade? We need a study. Most boards do this.
Yes.
Like, is there a study of our third grade? Can we show how it connects to Polk County? Because they know how we feel about it. They know the union's positions. Like, to go up there and, we need a little more meat with
Yes.
what we're doing, and we need time to prepare. Like, I would have loved time to have good conversation so we can connect it to Polk, have good data, and be able to present something other than just the alternative, because they'll just turn off if it sounds like
Yep.
something they don't want to hear. But if I hold them accountable to, these are Polk's numbers, this is how it affected the class of 2017 as they were retained, I need something to give them other than it's bad, because they know it's bad. I don't know that they're going to admit that it's bad.
Without that.
Because they don't have the knowledge.
Right.
Exactly. They
They're not going to say, hey, our idea is bad. You know what I mean? But if they know that we've done the work, we will make it public with our public relations. We will tell the community the story of our third graders as you had them retained. I think that's more than, I need something to go with it.
Yes.
There's a 2016 study about Florida as a whole. I mean, it's a Florida district, it's not. But
And
Ms.
I'd
Fields?
also like
Ms.
to look at, add to hers, I'd also like to look at not only the third grade, but there are schools in Polk County, charter schools, that retain at K, and to see the difference in those cohorts as they move. I asked for that a few years back, and it will truly blow your mind, the difference in retaining at K versus at 3, kindergarten versus third grade. So I think if you can show them that, I know we feel it, we know it, we experience it, but those people are so, in my opinion, far removed from those details that it would be very helpful to have some data. And then if it can be extrapolated statewide, I don't really know, but I'm just concerned for us at this point.
Ms. Fields?
I would have to agree with the majority of what Ms. Cunningham said. We're sitting here today talking about something that not only impacts the board members, but it also impacts the staff.
Yes.
And not once has anybody asked even Ms. Jackie, Ms. Bird, what's her opinion on the matter? And that just blows my mind. And I think that we need to include staff. We're supposed to be a team here. It's not a I, it's a we. And so I would strongly suggest that we work with what we have and then do some of the work sessions and the information that we need to talk about the issues, third grade retention, or whatever else our concerns may be. And in the past, we have had discussion before it was actually presented to us. Have we not, Ms. Wendy? We have done it. It might have been some years past.
Generally, the work session is our discussion.
But I mean, where you don't really bring the platform, you do have discussion, like what they're talking about. We have done that in the past. So it's not anything that we can't do, it's just, we just have to decide that that's what we wanna do as a group, as a body.
Ms. Fortney?
Well, I did ask Ms. Bird earlier about what she thought, just to make clarification. And number two, I think in defense of staff, they have brought that the bonus, I know Mr. Jason Pitts brought how the bonus was killing us as far as, I mean, in each presentation that has been stated. The VAM, I mean, we dealt with it because we had to move teachers, like, at the last hour. And it's a scam from the get-go. No more unfunded mandates. I brought that a couple, 3 months ago in a hard copy and then resent it again. So they have been discussed, in my opinion. The majority of them. Just putting that out there.
Can I say one thing?
Certainly.
And I don't want, because I know Ms. Cunningham talked about the retention of kindergartners. We don't have a mandatory promotion of kindergartners. Teachers do. There are kindergartners that are retained.
Oh, I know.
Excuse me. There's not a mandatory, but it's based on them. And you have to remember when a kindergartner walks into an elementary structured setting, that kindergartner is one, trying to learn social skills and different things. It takes them a while to get up and going on that. So I don't want the public, and I know the paper is here to print that we have mandatory promotion of all kindergartners, because we do not.
Oh, I know that.
We do not.
I know that. I understand. But you're,
Can I dovetail on that? I am asking to end mandatory third grade retention based on test scores. That's all I'm asking for. I'm like the other those are other policy issues. I'm talking about the state's mandatory retention based on a specific cut score.
I agree.
Ms. Reynolds?
I just was gonna, with what Ms. Fortney was saying, I think all of these things we have discussed, and that's where Ms. Dodge got this list. I think the concern is adding new things that we haven't discussed,
Right.
like third grade retention.
Right.
That to have a discussion about it moving forward and add it to next year's, or add it to a platform that we meet with them on continually when they're home, is one thing. But to add something that we haven't discussed or have had staff bring the research forward is what the discussion was.
Yeah, and
I agree with you.
and I agree. I think the challenge there is, before we go to staff, I need to know, I think as board chair, what it is as a board we want to know about. Otherwise, we're just asking staff to bring us stuff all the time. So it's important that we define what it is that we want to see before we go to staff and say, hey, bring us some. And that doesn't, I think we do a very good job of including staff. I don't think that we generally make decisions that don't include staff. But this is my take on the unfunded mandates, and Mr. Bridges, perhaps you could help out here. We either have a constitutional amendment or a state law that says that our state won't impose unfunded mandates on local governments. And so I'm just asking them to follow that law. Now, I believe as I looked at that piece of legislation, it was really written towards boards of county commission, for example, and local municipalities, not so much school boards. But nevertheless, I think it could be inferred to include school boards. And so my question is, why aren't we telling them, follow your own laws? And I'd like to see us take that approach.
I suspect that we do tell them that.
Well, maybe we need to tell them that more often.
We need to tell the public.
Yeah, I suspect that is what Mrs. Dodge and her colleagues do all the time.
Yeah.
This is what we're telling the public that we want our legislators to do. I really don't care about our legislators. They've shown indifference for years. I care about telling the public what the public needs to help us tell them to do. I have no idea what people are afraid of. I mean, if you're afraid of saying no more unfunded mandates, I really don't know why any of us are here. If we're afraid of saying salaries, not bonuses, I don't know why any of us are here. That's common sense. I've done the work on third grade retention, and I know it's like kicking children in the teeth over and over and over again, and it's abusive, and I'm not going to have any part in it. I will tell the public right now, I'm not going to be complicit in knowingly hurting your kids. You guys can come along to that when you want to. That's up to you. With respect to Mrs. Bird and the staff, again, the 7069 suit is very clear about this. They don't really answer to us. They answer to DOE. Jacob Oliva matters much more in their life than we do. It's a bad spot for them to be in. I don't say that with hostility. I'm not. It's just the reality. We have to be about what we're going to be with the public who elected us. And as much as anything, my purpose for this is to get myself on the record. I would love for everybody to come along, but I want the public to know where I stand in regards to our legislators and, on the things I'm talking about. I've done the work, and I don't need any more staff input on. Period.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from the board is that we want to move forward with our legislative priorities as we have identified here, but that we want to have an ongoing and continuous conversation at work session for possible legislative priorities in the future. Is that what I'm hearing from everybody? Okay.
I just have a
Yes,
question. We've talked about this before, and maybe Ms. Bird can give her input on it. I would like to see, we tell the story here, the staff knows the story, the staff can tell us about the funding issues. I would like to see us work on a community campaign to what it looks like to us, what the mandate looks like to your child in your school, what the safety laws that came out, the part that were funded, the part that weren't funded. I think we need to work on the delivery of that information in a concise, simple form to get community, because once you explain some of this to our community, they had no idea. They had no idea this was how it was, and then they seem to get inspired to want change, and they'll take it on their own to have change. But to keep preaching to the circle of people that are living this world, I don't know that we're getting further along. You do need community support to completely change an education system that we have in Florida. It can't be, so I think we need to focus those things with community, whether it's video, whether it's social media, and it doesn't have to be derogatory, towards any delegation, but it has to say, taxpayer, this is how this affects your child in your school, and you will see the community react, and that's where we're going to get laws changed or new change. And I don't know if that's a priority, if that's something you considered, if that's what, I don't know if that's something you need to talk about further with cabinet, but we've got to tell the community why we're in this situation. All they see is a $1.7 billion organization that says it's not enough money. And they're confused. And that's what the delegation hears. Every time, every conversation starts out with, Lisa, money will not fix your problems. Money is not the answer. Because I don't think they even recognize the deficits that we have, because no district's doing it well, but we need to be more transparent with how it affects Polk County and every child. And that's where I think we would see progress.
Ms. Reynolds?
I'm good.
Okay.
Well,
Ms. Fortney?
For example, the discrepancy in how much we actually spend on transportation versus what they send us. And Mr. Pitts has a beautiful video, PowerPoint that I love, and I'm sure it's updated by now.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add that Ms. Pleasant has already reached out to me to do a video, so she's waiting on me to give her the information, so we will have a video very soon.
Because that PowerPoint,
speaks to what you're all talking about.
yeah, because when we present it, it's like this.
Yeah.
People are like,
We need it in time for session, so you can use it as a tool.
Yep. Mr. Townsend?
But all those things flow up into specific points of view. Again, who's for unfunded mandates here?
not me.
So why are we afraid to say please don't do it anymore? And then we roll all of this up. Here's an example. Here's an example. Here's an example. But you don't build 6 million examples first and then have your slogan at the top. It's build the principle. All I do is explain to the public. I spend 24 hours a day explaining to the public, basically. So I'm salaries not bonuses has nothing to do with how much money there is. It's how it's distributed. No more unfunded mandates has nothing to do with how much money we get. It has to do with what we're dictated to do. in third grade retention really has nothing to do with money. Like, I mean, those are sort of not related. VAM is not a, I mean, who wants to keep using VAM? Who thinks that's awesome? Why are we afraid to say it? What is the harm? That they'll super VAM, that they'll give VAM plus to retaliate against us? What do we lose by being clear on these things? The public is confused all the time because we're not clear with them. And
It's true.
the point is to have some clear principles, then you can flow everything up into it, as you want, and you can take chips away at it. You can chip away at these things. You're not going to fix them overnight, but you set a sort of North Star of what we think and what we're about, and then we chip away at it over time. So I mean, that's fine.
Well, excuse me, and I'm in agreement with you, but I think what I'm hearing is we just need to have some discussions to clarify, because we may want to wordsmith it a little bit and work on it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have work sessions and talk some more about it as we move forward. Ms. Dodge needs something to work with now, so we want to give her what she needs to work, work her magic at a state level.
Well,
And so, again, so what I'm hearing is we're moving forward with this, and we're going to, Madam Superintendent, if we could continue to have work sessions and discussions. Ms. Reynolds?
I was just gonna say, I think that they ask us for specifics. What does that look like? So I think these are the specifics that you could do today to start chipping away at that. I think we have our overarching principles that these are always things that are chipping away at the things that we want to see progress on. But I think having meetings with them starting, if we could maybe get one scheduled for June or July before it's, the end of session and they don't want to talk to us anymore, that would be helpful to be able to already be on top of it and starting the conversation for next year, because we always seem to meet
Sure.
the last
One more
hour.
comment,
Ms. Forty?
having spent, in my young board life with, Ms. Dodge, I mean, in her defense, she does start with salaries, not bonuses. I mean, it's not like it's not mentioned, which is how, again, we have discussed that. Like, that has been discussed. That has been proven in numbers. End of VAM. It must have been discussed somewhere because we had it on our priorities last year.
In the year before.
But that's my point. And,
Right.
you know.
So, I agree. They know all of this. Rather than they don't care. What matters is the public making them care. This is us talking to the public, not to them. And only the public can really make them. They don't fear us. They laugh at us. Because we thank them and we grovel. At the very least, we should have end VAM on this, end the use of VAM. And if they say no, fine. Then we hold them accountable for saying no. When they don't do the things we want them to do, then we blast them. That's how this works. Pressure works, not begging. And I seriously, I have no idea why people aren't willing to commit to no unfunded mandates and salaries, not bonuses today. Why that's a problem.
It's not a problem for me, Billy. I say it every dang day.
So,
I feel like salaries, not bonuses is number 2.
Then let's say it. Let's say salaries, not bonuses, not because they're already talking about creating a new bonus program for experienced teachers. No new bonus programs.
So how about if we say redirect vested by brightest bonuses to salary increases for all teachers?
So redirect all bonuses. No new bonus programs. All bonuses. End bonuses.
and Madam Superintendent, what's your take on that?
I think it should say all staff, because if you say teachers, they cut out
Yeah, that's
some
fine.
of your
Yeah.
classroom teachers, so your coaches. I think you have to look at staff.
But my point is, don't limit it to best and brightest, because they're going to come up with a new thing, like
For now.
salaries, not bonuses.
So,
And this doesn't have anything to do with Wendy, but I want to be clear. This is about us, about how we Wendy's just doing her job, so.
So redirect bonus programs to salary increases for all
All
staff.
bonus.
All staff.
You want to, yeah, all bonuses to all staff.
bonus, any and all bonuses.
Redirect all bonus programs to salary increases for all staff.
For all staff.
There we go. But Wendy, don't you agree there's a climate that believes there's a section, how it's sold is we should reward the teachers that are outstanding because you have a subset that are not. I mean, that's just their thinking. Without taking into account the teachers that take on students who need more support services or more social services. I think we need to be clear that they don't, we're looking at it through a different lens. They're looking at a lens of, you have some great teachers and you have some that shouldn't be there, so we're gonna push the money to the ones that are outstanding, without understanding the story of where there's teachers who may not be scoring as well, what they have to do daily. That's part of the storytelling that I think that we need to increase what we're doing.
That's a great point.
Because I really don't think they get, just in my conversations with them, we've said it over and over again, but they keep going back to, we're gonna send money to the teachers who are outstanding, because don't you want outstanding teachers for your kids? I mean, that is the methodology. It's just different, it's a different lens. So if we told the story,
Yeah.
I think that would help.
I agree, but I don't know if everybody knows. So if your school didn't make a 3% increase this year,
You lost.
and your bonuses to all the teachers who worked so hard last year gone, wiped out.
I have
So-
the high school that it happened to.
Right, and I have several schools as well, and people are upset. It's okay that you do that, but give me a year's notice. Don't tell me to work so hard all year that I'm gonna be getting this, and then come, whenever Mr. Pitts sent out the email to everybody and I started getting calls, now you pull the rug out from under me in September, October, after I've earned it and worked all last year. I mean, those kind of things are just awful, and they disrespect staff on every level.
Purpose, though.
Excuse
I'm
me?
telling you.
Yeah, I mean, all the more reason to say right now, salaries, not bonuses.
Well, she is, she just put it in
I
there.
know, I've got-
Yeah, we agree.
Read the tables.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay. We probably need to move on. Any further discussion?
Well, just
Yes, sir.
the in-vam question as opposed, I really don't care about when the date comes out, I want it out. So it's I'm comfortable saying in VAM's role in teacher evaluation, if not ended, have it out by July 31st, whatever. But, I mean, is there anybody who
Well-
wants to keep VAM in the?
Superintendent Byrd, would you?
Not that we want to keep them, but we really have to, because I don't see where they're gonna end them, because that is the measure that they're
We
using.
asked that before.
Right, but
And
we
we got
need
it.
that
Stop asking.
information, we need that information out before the week of school starting.
Right,
And we
right.
have to start shifting. That's why I really want to hold firm. Once they get data, they should let us know immediately. So that way, if we have to move staff, we don't uproot people. Once kids have gotten acclimated, people are in classrooms. If they're gonna use that mechanism, then we need to move forward with getting it
Can you
to
put
us
a
as soon as
sentence
possible.
after that to say what she just said?
Oh,
Right.
Needs to
what I
be
said. All the
Yeah,
above.
just keep it, just say end, and then if it's not ended,
ended
do X, Y, Z.
by the 31st in order to not uproot teachers 2 weeks after school starts, August, and make up a date for whatever the 2020 date is.
At the start of school.
I know, start of school, there we go.
How
But
about
they-
if I add something to the end of that sentence, saying and prohibit its use in the differentiated accountability system?
Oh, that's not called that
Ooh.
anymore.
It's not called that.
It's
but
not
what's
called
it
that
called?
anymore.
Instead,
School improvements, we'll get that for you.
Can I ask a question of Wendy? Didn't our legislators really end VAM, and isn't that more of a DOE? It's not,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
in statute.
That's my point.
So you make legislators aware of
VAM
it.
is optional for districts to use, and that's the only mention of it in statute.
That's what they're gonna come back with when you say
That's
in
my
VAM.
point.
They're gonna
Yeah.
say,
We
you don't have
already
to
did
use it.
That's what they did say.
Yeah.
Direct DOE to end VAM.
there you go, something.
Well, and that's why we're saying prohibit its use in these certain situations, because right now the law is silent to that, and so the only way to direct DOE is through statute by
prohibit.
But
saying
when you
prohibit.
specify specific situations, that means they can come up with other specific situations that you haven't as a bind. All the more reason to say end its use in teacher accountability or school accountability.
We could just say and prohibit its use, period, and that way it doesn't matter.
I'm all about that.
Yeah.
That sound good to everyone?
I didn't hear
Sorry,
you.
I
understand what
Madam
we're
Secretary.
Conversations were.
Could-
Say
could you-
require it to be provided by July 31st and prohibit its use, period.
Well,
Yes.
why are you saying use it by July 31st and then prohibit it?
Right.
That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
That's
I
why.
mean,
That's the
I'm
problem.
sorry.
So, I think we need to have more discussion about it. So we just need, it needs to be something we need to continue to talk about and identify an appropriate strategy for addressing it, because there are a lot of subtleties here, right? And so,
I
we,
think what this was about was our immediate desire is to have that
Have
July
information.
31st date, because we're gonna
Right.
come up on July 31st again in 9 months. And I think that our overall
Instead of
position
and, it could
is,
be or.
we never have supported the use of BAM in the way that the department is using it, but we need to work on that message.
But when you read it like this,
Or
it
prohibit.
sounds like we're okay with BAM, just as long as you get it to us on time. That's what it sounds. That's how they read it.
I don't think it is.
Oh,
Okay, so we
that's why
have-
it's still around.
yeah, we
No, it's
have,
still around because DOE has
we-
it. Our
Or
legislators.
prohibit its use.
we have some discussion, that we need to continue having some discussion. I understand there's some differences of opinion on this matter. So we have a few changes that the superintendent and board seem to be happy with, and we'll continue the discussion. We'll keep having the discussion moving forward.
Mr. Chairman, can you make note, though, that this next time, we cannot start this to, like, at this kind of time frame? Like, we have to do this earlier.
Do the legislative priorities?
Yes.
Like summer.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. We're gonna have an ongoing item on the work session so that we have a continued discussion about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I mean, in fairness to staff, the way this has been done over the years, it seems to me, and certainly since I've been here, is you get a lot of very granular, kind of minor things that are on the fringes of making things a little bit better. You're not actually taking positions on what's wrong with the overall model. You're not taking positions on what's wrong with the overall system. I think the way they've done this, if it's geared to the specific negotiations of a legislative session, is fine. The problem is, doing advocacy that way is a disaster. It accomplishes nothing. You get nothing done. They laugh at us. They go up there, they hear us, and then they go up and they talk to the people who are funding them, or who are providing them jobs when they're done, or the only weapon we have in this is the public. This is our way of talking to the public about what we think needs to be fixed, because we're here, and that's not something we've done before. And I think it's unfair to criticize staff for not having that in place. That's new. I mean, I get that. So I think this is good to start the process. I mean, I think some of these things are common sense, but anyway, that's I just wanted to say.
We need to have an ongoing discussion. Okay, thank you very much. You've been very patient with us today.
So we're going forward with what she presented with the
With-
one change?
Well, there were actually a couple changes she made. and-
Number two is the only one that changed, right?
So we'll vote on that at a meeting, like, and then we'll have sessions.
Does this come to us for board meeting, Madam Superintendent? I mean, for board
October
vote?
22nd.
Okay.
When we come, are you gonna bring this back with the change, Wendy, to the,
So the next board meeting, I believe, is October 22nd.
you're gonna bring it back?
I will be in Tallahassee, so it would be a board item
Okay.
without.
Well, after you write up the changes, would you mind sending those to us?
Right.
Exactly, send them
And we
out.
can give an
That
input.
way they have it ahead of time.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, so the next item on our agenda is Parent Teacher Association, Janet Lemerow. Morning.
I believe I know most of you in the room. I'm Janet Lamoureux. I'm with the Polk County Council PTA, the Polk Community PTA, which stands for the Parent Teacher Association. I've got some very intelligent individuals with me to explain the main purpose why I'm presenting to you today, and then we have some alternate purposes that I'd like to tuck in at the very end of this presentation. So, Carmen, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Cumberland Danko, board chair, superintendent, board members, and staff. I'd like to thank you all for having us here today. I am here representing the Florida PTA as their resolutions chair, and I'm also one of the training leads for a special grant that Florida PTA received. Before I get into that, and I'd also like to allow Diane time to introduce herself as well. I am from Alachua County. I have 4 kids who attend public schools in Alachua County, 2 in high school, 1 in middle school, and 1 in elementary school. I am an accountant by trade, and I am here as a volunteer. All of your PTA, all the way national, all the way down to your local unit, any officer or chair is always a volunteer. And we have very little paid staff that assist us. But I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Good morning. I'm Diane Leinenbach, and I am the new Regional Executive Director for Bureau of School Improvement for the Southeastern region. And so I'm proud to, on a regular basis, partner with Polk County Schools as well as the other districts that I serve. Our specialists last year were able to pull up out of DNF status 80% of the schools that we work with, so we're very proud of the work that we do in partnerships with our districts such as Polk are imperative to seeing improvement. So I've enjoyed listening to you this morning, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning.
So let me go into give you some background about the grants that Florida PTA received, so you understand what we're doing here. As you all know, the Every Student Succeeds Act passed in 2015. And as part of that act, every state is now required to develop a state report card. And in that state report, as part of that state report card, it's not just the state, right? The district now has a report card, and every school has a report card. Mandated in ESSA is that parents are supposed to be a part of the development of that report card, and it's supposed to be ongoing. So National PTA, along with 20 other organizations, we're trying to figure out, including the data quality campaign, I should say, we're trying to figure out how do we impart the importance of this piece that we can now, most states have some type of school grade, but if we're going to make the Every Student Succeeds Act successful, one piece is we can expand that tool so that community members can understand how to go beyond the grade, to understand how they can help their district, their school, their student. Okay. The Data Quality Campaign and National PTA were awarded a grant to work with states and their departments of education to develop a campaign essentially over 2 years. We were one of 5 states to win this grant. So Florida, you're witnessing a presentation and a workshop that's going on in 5 other states in our country. We have the cooperation, happily have the cooperation of the Florida Department of Education, so that you know that whatever feedback we're receiving, they're listening. They're here. They've been very supportive in helping us to understand how the data is coming together and how you can provide them with feedback. So as I said, this grant is for 2 years. It has 3 goals. The first goal is why we're here today, which is basically to say we have a report card. And I think all of you know that, but I would wonder how many of your parents, which is really the intended audience, how many of your parents know that, And then I would take it a step further because this isn't just about PTA. We know that something like school grades, so that this is an adjustment to the way we're presenting school grades. We know that the community uses those and it has an impact on your school. So how many of that wider stakeholder community understand this is here, this is a new tool that is here for them and how it can be used. So as part of this campaign, the first goal is awareness. And we are trying to explain, as you'll see in a minute, why you should care about your state report card. The second goal will be interpretation. So helping people to learn to read those report cards. And then the last one is advocacy. So now that we know how to read, what do we do with it? We have, in the first goal here, as I said, we're going to take you through the presentation in a minute. Janet's going to take you through the presentation and workshop in a minute that we have out. And we can do this workshop, by the way, in 10 minutes or in 45 minutes. There's adjustments to it. But what we are here to do today is to ask your help, to work with your Polk County Council of PTAs and with your Polk Community PTSA to provide this workshop in a variety of areas in your spheres of influence. Because there is nothing to send out simply a PTA member by themselves is great. But I always say the power of PTA is if you have a parent and a teacher advocating together, there's nothing stronger than that for a child. If you have a parent and an administrator, and if you have a parent and a state leader, same thing. There's not going to be anything stronger for your child, the school, your district, and the state. So if we can all kind of get on the same page of how we can help, just think what we could do for all the kids here in Polk County and beyond. So that's the overall objective of why we're here with you today, is to ask for your help in this effort here in Polk County. The objectives of the presentation are to understand the history and purpose behind ESSA, so we give anyone who's attending the background that this is law. We go through the actual EduData portal that was developed by the Department of Education and show what is currently there. And then we have an ask of anyone we're presenting to, start to use it, because that's what we really need. We need people to start to use it and to provide the Department of Ed with feedback of what's not there, what's missing, and is it something that we can possibly work towards. I can tell you that and you all know this, our ESSA plan was the last one. Is it okay if I use ESSA, by the way? We're all good with what? Our ESSA plan was the last one to be approved by the National Department of Education. So our report card was the last one to be developed. And while we're going to go through what the legal requirements are in terms of what should be on that report card, it is by no means the finished product. It is we need feedback of how 67 different counties that collect their data in 67, that you all collect your data in 67 different ways, how we're going to show that consistently across those 67 counties. Okay? And lastly, we are hoping that you all will see, as I said, I'm here from Alachua County. That association, I would not be here without the A in PTA. That association piece, you are, as part of it, as a PTA, you member, you are connected to a county, a state, and a national PTA. And we hope that you know that we are here for you at every level, and we have resources to help provide this information or whatever information you think your people in Polk County need. So Janet, if you...
What I'm going to do at this time is I'm going to say drive you through rather fast a presentation that I've already conducted twice. It's a slightly modified version, with or without the support, and hopefully we will have the support of the district. With or without the support of the district, our Polk Community Unit, PTSA, stands for student, are doing our due diligence with our handful of tired volunteers running around sharing this information in front of audiences because we feel it's important to advocate for children. So we've already shared this. I had the pleasure of sharing this at the Kathleen High School School Advisory Council. It wasn't a meeting. They allowed us to share this presentation. I was on the agenda and Maria was there as well. Asked Jeanette Crawley to put us on for the District Advisory Council. I had reached out to the folks putting together our Exceptional Student Symposium, asking to do this presentation also in a bilingual thing, and they said all the sessions were full. But I said, okay, please put me on a waiting list. I think this information would be very valuable. However, I do have a PTA table, so as usual, I will do my best to grab all those humans that walk by me and try to have them know the importance of PTA and share this data information with them. Okay, so when we do the presentation in front of the audience, as she mentioned, we can do this in a matter of a few minutes, up to 45 minutes, but we basically just let the parents know, what's our objectives. We want to tell you what the importance of report cards are. Many of them in that moment might be only thinking of their child's report card. Then we are going to expose you to, there's a Florida report card, district and school report cards, and then how they can get involved with parents, and then there's a question and answer at the end. Again, we go through saying how many of you are aware there are report cards. I'm very visual, so to me, looking at this, I can see there's a student report card, I can see there's a state report card, and of course we have a Polk County district report card. So some of this and the importance of why we go through report cards. We go through the history of what the elementary...
Can I stop you for just
Yes.
a second? So going back to why use a report card in this method, I think it's just because, again, the intended audience in the law are parents. And parents can identify with a report card. And it gives you an idea that this is supposed to be something more than a grade. And what we always make clear is that this is nothing more than just like your child's school report card, than a tool. It isn't going to tell you anything about the relationship your child has with that teacher, and there is nothing in a school, district, or state report card that is ever going to replace volunteering in your child's classroom, talking to an administrator, or just simply walking around. But it should be a tool, and it can be an area, I'm hoping that you'll see, that you can launch conversations for parent engagement from a different platform.
Fantastic. That will cover some of that. We do go through, explain to the parents some of the items and the purpose of what is supposed to be on the report cards, and then we have the link if they want to look to the full, I don't know how many pages it is, of the hyperlink of
If you're a
everything.
PTA nerd and you want to know exactly what the law says and what's exactly required, you can click on that link and it'll take you there.
I literally asked Colin just to put this part of the screen in the presentation in the event we do not have internet access, and it's a reminder of some of the items down below. She is much more skilled in than I, and that's usually what we cover at the end. So this was more of a
Well, this gives you an idea of the visual of how the DOE has put together those ESSA requirements.
They're online.
Cell phone go to.
here. And then we actually, in an ideal setting, we put them through, wait a minute, let me set this up. There it is. Basically, we guide the parents through that how they can find the information. When we give you the background, do the quick 17 clicks versus 4 clicks. First thing we tell you.
So when we first started this grant, which was back in May, the first time we went to try to find our state report card, we couldn't find it because it was still under construction. And it actually took 14 clicks to even try to find the beta portal. So I will say that was back in May, and we're now in November, and the site has gone live, and again, I would just say keep that in mind and see what is provided.
How do you get to the report? What is the link? I
The
don't
link
see
is
it anywhere.
EduData.
What is it?
EduData. And
ED?
you all, I always encourage everybody, I know it's unusual in a presentation, but get on your laptops and go there.
I've already been there, it's really quite interesting.
Slow, say that again. EDU.
Just put it in Google. It'll come up.
EduData.
Yep.
At Google. Amazing.
DOE.org. And if you go to Google, it should be the number 1 or number 2. If you put in like Florida State Report Card, it should be the number 1 or number 2.
Well, in the handout, it
sent it to
tells you edudata.fl.
I just sent it. I just sent
I
the
didn't
link.
find it, sorry.
I sent it. I just emailed it.
Okay, it takes you to the landing page, which I already had up, and that's why I was afraid I really shouldn't click.
Did you get it?
And then when we start showing the parents some of the information, I've, in the 2 that I have conducted, I cover some of the items that are up at the top, letting them know you can use the pull-down menu, because one of the things you can do from this landing page is you can see your state report card, your district, or the school, and some prior years. But for those of us that are a little bit more visual, you can also access the information from the icons. There are other, of course, pull-down menus that will get you diving a little bit deeper, getting into closing the gap, and some advanced reports. But initially, in this first rollout, I'm spending most of the time acclimating them to information related to our state report card. This pulls up. So it identifies our 67 counties, and of course, they can just hover over something and it will give them some of the information. And again, just seeing a letter, as you and I know, means absolutely nothing. We need to start educating our parents and community. Just because you're in A school doesn't mean it's an A school for your kid. And just because it's a D school doesn't mean it's a D school for your child.
Amen.
Or your grandchild, or your foster child. Again, it's starting to dive into some of the data. I usually only spend a few minutes on this, letting them know, of course, we have an overall state graduation rate, and identifies the count of letter grades and the number of districts that fall into those. And then, of course, it gives a cute little icon of traditional and charter schools. Based on the amount of time we have during the presentation, we traditionally go right on to the next, that we want to pull up the district, because I feel you probably have a little more vested interest in your district than you do in the state. So we quickly go through the district, and again, there's all sorts of improvements they've made. I just type in the letter P, it allows me to go to Pulp, select my letter.
Or you can click on it on the
There's
map.
multiple, yes,
Yeah.
they've been making improvements every time we turn around, it's great. But they wouldn't be making some of these improvements if we didn't what? Provide feedback.
And I'll just go ahead and mention here on the
Yes.
provide feedback, and we'll probably, I'm gonna
So
usually
you
loop
forget.
back around this again at the end. When you click on that, it brings up a Survey Monkey form, I believe a Survey Monkey form, and you fill it out, and you send it in. Let's say you only have one item you really wanted to provide feedback on at that particular point in time. You cannot click that and send that form in again, but what you do receive, if you want to provide further feedback, is an email from their BI department, which stands for the Business Intelligence Department. And the BI department, once you have that email and that address, you can just continually, they are very responsive. They will get back to you within 24 hours and let you know that your feedback was received, so you can continue to have an ongoing conversation.
For example, using this, someone provided the feedback saying, when I started looking at the information, I've got a child with exceptionalities. And when I'm looking at the number for a school and it says a Lawton Childs has 5% and a Griffin has 14, I'd like to know as a parent, which of those percentage was the high achieving exceptionalities versus the low, because that might make a difference for me as a parent.
Well, and I would also say that some of this, though, is just to prompt those conversations at the school. So if you know that some data isn't necessarily there, but it should be there at your district or your school. If you want to click on, go back up for a minute, if you want to click on, this is district performance components. That will give you a quick snapshot of the 11 grade components. That'll do it for the district and for the, oh,
Well, it's down here too, right?
it's down there, well, that one though is, go down, it should be there, there it is. And it'll, on the left, they give, so one of the pieces of feedback we're continually giving is that the data quality campaign has said that no language should be above a 6th grade reading level, if this is intended for parents. So this is one of the pieces of feedback we give, is that if you're trying to visually show people and get them to understand what these measure components that our state has said are important, you need to provide it in a way that the average person is going to understand.
So with the parents, we go through, just letting them know you can hover over, information. It gives you the data. It can give you this as a district, what our stats are, gender, etc. And then, of course, I'm not getting into those blue items. I traditionally do those at the end based on time. And then I proceed indicating, again, I'm sure most of you in this room really care about the school that your child is at this moment. So let's go ahead and pull up a particular school so you can see some information. And the last school I did, because I did it at my son's school, and we did Kathleen. Oh, sorry. Because if you're doing it at a particular school, that's where they really want to focus on. This allows the conversation. So you can start going into some data with them, and again, it's going to be the same information, but we show this again with the parents. And then I want you to take me through, which was surprising to me, which I learned.
Well, I mean, so the PTA's mission is to ensure that every child reaches its full potential by by engaging and empowering parents in the community to advocate for all children. So if I'm a PTA leader at this school and I pull this up, the first thing I'm going to see is identified for support. Give me some detail, and it says yes, give me some details as to how I can help. And it goes in, I mean, what the details go into are the federal indices, which if any of you can give me a short synopsis of exactly what this is in an understandable way in 5 minutes for any particular parent, I would appreciate it. It is extremely complicated. However, it provides, this is important. That's what it should tell your parent-teacher association. This is important, and this is a way that we are measuring things now. And this is, what does CS&I and TS&I mean? How is an underperforming subgroup identified? So you can be at, it should give you a better picture of, you can be at an A school or a B school and still hit being identified for support because you have a number of underperforming subgroups. So we are, or you can be at a DRF school and you can have a better understanding of which populations are we trying to help. And one of the pieces of feedback that we've been trying to give or to see if we can work towards is, can schools and districts say how they're helping, what they're doing? Because have you all been to a single school that doesn't understand, or have you met a single parent that doesn't need help in some way, shape, or form?
Right.
And tell me the school or teacher that looks at them and says, eh. I mean, you have programs, you have mentor programs, you have reading programs, you have literacy, you have math, you have STEM. I mean, there's all kinds of programming I know that goes on at every single school and every single district. Could we use this as a tool to better communicate that? Is it possible?
Okay, now I'm trying to get to the graduation comparison report that we had. that will show me the comparison of my particular school with my district, the one that we did in River Shop.
But I mean, so I just want to say for identifying your support, I'm just hoping that we could get away from the fact that, oh, that's somewhere I don't want to be, and instead our communities will turn to that and say, oh, is this a way, you know, no, this neighborhood school is important, and how can we help them? And I do think that some of those are a little bit better measures and visuals than the Excel spreadsheets that we used to all get and try to data mine and dig for. Is it what we would all want to see at the end of the day? No, but again, remember, it has to be an ongoing plan, and we can continue to improve it.
I totally agree. Do y'all do individual schools, like their parents, and present this? And
We could, but we do need some help to do
Right.
that, because, you know, what is the brand of PTA these days in your heads? What do most people think of when you think of a PTA?
fundraising.
So if your PTA is calling you a meeting about data, if your PTA and your school board member are calling you to a meeting about a report card,
There you go. Change the verbiage again. Who, I have one more question. Who updates the information? Like, I'm looking at one of my schools
So-
and that's the wrong principal.
that is the information that the DOE is receiving from the district. I
Okay.
mean, all of this is the information received from the schools and the district that the DOE has. So if it's wrong, that, you know, that needs to be communicated to DOE. And as I said, that I learned the other day that Florida was actually one of the first states to ever be on the internet, period. And we were the first ones to start collecting student data at all. And the reason why we started collecting it was for funding purposes. Not evaluation of schools.
Question, I know that we have a, I think it's called DAC, our District Advisory Council, which is made up of people that are on the advisory council at the school, SAC committee, whatever. So have you had an opportunity to present it there?
I did it, and I don't know how many schools were there. Jeanette's supposed to be, I'm supposed to pick up the sign-in sheet because we turned that in for our grant. Do you recall how many representatives were there, Maria? I did, I presented the information
Did you?
already. So what are
Okay.
they gonna do with it, who
Got
attended?
it, got it. Okay, just one, because I know it's a wonderful committee, and I've heard so many positive things from
Correct.
the presentations at that, for the folks that I know that attend them at our schools. So that's why I was wondering, this would be a great place. And then do we follow up then? So if I'm from school X and I came as their representative, then do you, do
I
we
have
go?
my business card,
You
I laid
did,
it out
okay,
there, I had the
okay.
presentation, and it's only if they
Got it.
call. We were fortunate enough because Title I was there as well, and they provided some of the information.
Awesome.
So
Okay,
it's a great
thank you.
connection. I just wanted to show them one more thing, because, was it under Closing the Gap, the high school graduation?
Well, actually, if we get back in
For that
this,
school.
let's finish the actual presentation. We already went through a few things, but just so you can see what we try to take parents through. If you don't have internet access, we provide screenshots to say where everything is. And we talk about, you know, every single report card has demographic data on there, and very visual demographic data. It's very important that you provide feedback, that's the whole point. It's, you know, in order for it to work.
I like the attendance and discipline data.
So we get
piece.
into that, why, and we tell them why it's important, transparency, snapshots. And again, I always say it should be a different launching point for a conversation. It is not the be-all, end-all, this is what your school is, or your district is, or even our state.
Right.
We always make it very clear that, you all know what FERPA is, the student privacy is of the utmost importance. I give a very personal story. When I grew up in Florida, Nassau County. I am a biracial child and half Vietnamese. And when I went in to take, I think, the Iowa Basic One year I marked that I was Asian, and you know, they used to send home like a little trifold brochure. And so there's white, black, Asian, 1, there's my score. The FERP is a really good thing. So when you come across your report card and you're trying to look for something and you see a star, or you click on a subgroup and you're trying to take a look at particular data for a subgroup and you get this message, no one's trying to hide anything from you. It means there are 10 students or fewer in that particular area you're looking for. So if you get this message though, and you know that you have a subgroup that you're concerned about, or a cohort, or whatever you want to, children, you have a group of kids that you're concerned about, what do you need to do if you see that? If you're looking at a school, what do you need to do?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You go in
Something
and,
else.
you go in and talk to the principal.
Right, find out, who- yeah, right, what can be done.
Or if it's for your, you go in and talk to Mrs. Berger.
I just have a question directly related to the data that's shown. You're saying it's coming strictly from the DOE?
The DOE is responsible for putting it together. So
I just have a
it's-
high school that's 100% economically disadvantaged compared to another high school that I'm being told is lower socioeconomic disadvantage, and they're showing only 80. So I don't know, I'm just curious to where they're pulling this data.
Some of
It is-
that, if I'm sorry to answer that.
Yes.
Some of that information is provided based on the free and reduced lunch forms that are turned in by the
That we
parents.
don't turn in.
So Polk does it.
For the federal, yeah, Alachua is in the same boat.
And that kind of, it skews data all over the place. Is there another district, how is Alachua County doing it?
Well, and we have the same issue. I think what that requires is basically more, you're gonna have to explain that somewhere
Right.
in this area.
Because if a parent looks at that, my phone's gonna ring.
I know,
Okay.
yeah. So these are, as I said, this is why we're doing this. We need to provide this feedback, because this, I mean, yes, this is a tool, but this is another way that we are presenting our schools and our districts.
That's like the third time that's come up in the last.
It's hard to do comparisons with it now.
That issue's beyond this report, but it really is a disadvantage in a lot of areas where it's an advantage because the kids are eating for free. We've got to figure that out, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, I don't think you want to take away the kids eating for free.
Right. But we've lost Title I in center schools, we've lost Title I in schools where the demographic has not changed.
Right.
So we're taking money from kids on the other end. So how do we even that out? Yeah.
The DOE does white and non-white race ethnicity, so I'm curious where the more, I'm glad to see the more detailed enrollment criteria. But where is that coming from? Is that federally? Is that
That's
data
all-
we send to the Fed?
Yeah, those are all set by the federal guidelines.
So that's part of ESSA.
Yeah.
Without ESSA, we would have just white and not white, right? Then there'd be no.
Well, I think that was actually determined by state, or by district, because in Alachua County, we've been collecting on all those different, the same federal.
Well, I mean, but when you go to DOE's site and they break down the schools, but it's a white, non-white.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I remember from,
It's a,
from before.
right.
That comes from federal requirements and federal guidelines. It used to just be federal reporting was white or non-white, and then it would break it down by more, I forget the term, not demographics, but ethnicities.
Ethnicities.
So,
But that's stemming from an act a long time ago.
Yeah, what's required now is in the ESSA statute, and it's laid out. It's all federal, so all states are having to report on these same.
So there's been federal laws that have changed over time that now requires it to be broken down in this section, and that's under ESSA.
is there any reason why DOE wouldn't break things down on their site like this on the spreadsheet they have, as opposed to, because it is still essentially white and I think it's white and non-white.
Which site are we talking
When
about?
you go to look at their school grade stuff, or you go to look at when it gets into a demographics, it's a binary rather than.
I could be wrong, but I think this is gonna be it.
This is it. This is the new platform.
This is the new platform.
Okay, so it's gonna replace all of that? Or-
I don't know about replacing the Excel spreadsheets, we can ask, I don't know. I assume it would, because why would you,
Well, there's a lot that can be done with a spreadsheet, so I would rather have the spreadsheet too.
I have not heard that the
Well,
spreadsheets are going away,
they're
but
not-
this is a more visual format for
And it's-
parents. And
and
really,
it-
it's to bring all stakeholders together that have an interest in schools and students and helping teachers and helping public schools to be more effective. But I have not heard on the flip side that they're removing the current spreadsheets. In terms of why it's not reported differently, I don't have that answer, but I can try and find out for you.
So if somebody here at, locally has each school broken down by Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, as opposed to just white and non-white, somebody here at the local.
You're talking about within our
Yeah.
system, which is probably feeding out of focus up into their system. That's what you're looking at.
Well, and I would also remember that those are reported based on the way that parents and
Right,
students
that's what
report.
I'm saying.
No,
That's what we
Because
key
I
in,
told that
focus.
story, well, guess
Mhm.
what I did the very next year? I no longer identified myself as Asian.
Right.
Well, it's rough. It's a rough,
Yeah.
rough approximation. What, you know, you can talk about people wanting to go deeper and beyond, but the first thing they see is the letter grade. You know, it's above the fold. They're not going to go any deeper than that. What I would recommend, and I have no idea if anybody will do it, the grade labels themselves, A, B, C, D, etc., are ridiculous. 62 is an A. You should put the score there, because we've got a magnet school that's an 87 and another magnet school that's a 62, and they're both A's. And the differential between those two is bigger than any differential you're going to see at any other layer. So I mean, if you wanted to do,
So I think when you, I believe on a school, and we're not on the live site right there, but I think if you break down the view, so what you're saying is that the score should be right there
instead of
next
C,
to
it should be a number.
the score should be right there next to it.
And I just generally, we're all trapped in this model. Chasing this kind of data for 20 years has created a state in which nobody grows, in which we have the worst test score growth, not just human growth, test score growth in the country. We're all participating in it. I mean, you've heard some of the discussion before. It would be nice if I felt like DOE was actually ever interested in helping. I haven't seen any evidence of that. I'm not talking about you guys. I mean, I know you.
No, but I'm loving the feedback because they're at least.
And this is a dead end. This is the reason why we have schools where there are 5% ESE kids and 15% ESE kids, because we use these things to shuffle and to sort. So I just don't want anybody to have any illusions about what this is. And you could make it a little better by putting a number there rather than the grade, but it's still going to be the same thing. Grades are fraud. They are designed to stigmatize the kids in the lower graded schools, who are overwhelmingly kids who have special needs. They are overwhelmingly poor kids. They are overwhelmingly kids of color. They're designed to justify segregation choices. They are designed to do everything but help. And I just want to have that said for the record. And I appreciate what PTA does. You guys are helpful to us.
And Billy, what I've done as a parent and where I live, what I did is I pulled up my surrounding schools. My Winston, my Griffin, my Kathleen, my Jessie Keene, within a mile radius, and that's where I started putting the numbers. So yes, but the power of parents, we'll talk in later. So let us roll a little bit so I don't get in trouble from
Yeah, we're running out of time pretty quickly, so I'm probably move along.
because I think there'll be quite a few questions maybe when you get to the end, and that way at least we're at the end. But we do ask whenever we do this presentation, to participate in with PTA, use the feedback, they can ask for additional workshops, and again, that's with the support. And again, going back to the comment, I think Lori mentioned it earlier, is can we call someone up for it? Yes, you could. We have about 22 PTA units at this time, and then there's some other information, and when we've got available and we're not at another school, and there's 2 or 3 individuals that aren't working 2 jobs that can run around and do that presentation for you at any time, we'd be more than happy to to assist you with that. And as our PTAs grow, it helps our leaders and our additional parents, so we have more parents involved. So next thing you know, if we have 50 or 100, then we would have 20 or 30 or 40 that might have the luxury of doing something like that. I'm gonna flip through this one just because that was the school report card.
So this is how the attendance data and the classroom environment data is really presented at this point. And the reason why it doesn't go directly to a DOE platform, it takes you to the civil rights data collection, which is a national one, is that I think we're all familiar with Cesar, correct? Cesar data. So this is the national platform of where Cesar data started and what determines the components of it. The data in here is from 2015 because it's collected biannually. The reason why we don't have the Cesar data and everything directly going on that report card yet is because it is we need to make sure that we are if we're going to put it on our state report card, we have to make sure we're collecting things consistently, validly, all the way across all 67 counties. So this takes you somewhere, and I'm hoping it would prompt discussions, but I'm trying to use it myself as a parent. It took me 4 attempts to get to, if you take a look at the scavenger hunt, is basically the activity we try to take or encourage parents to do. Usually we tell them, because usually it prompts conversation the whole way through, and we tell them it should provide you with some ideas of what to look for in your own school. This is an example of, this is data that your school and your district has. So if you are interested in for your school or your district that's more current than 2015, you can go and get it. Now, if we want it to be more accessible all the way across the state, that is a piece of feedback that DOE needs to hear. But right now, you go to the civil rights data collection, and I could not find the attendance for the particular school that's on that scavenger hunt. And the issue with the issue that comes up is the data that is presented is only as good as what's put in. So if you take a look at this particular elementary school in 2015, it's saying that there were no referrals and that there were no suspensions in that whole entire elementary school for the whole year. So, again, if we're going to, are those pieces of data we need? You know, those are all types of things that, that collectively we all need to come together and provide some feedback to DOE.
And to the parent, because if you have a gung-ho parent, they might start something that allows for attendance to improve. Or that's the whole goal.
That is one of the huge initiatives
about
I
grades.
know of Chancellor Oliva is chronic absenteeism, and actually your Florida PTA is a special committee. I'm getting ready to write an updated resolution speaking about legislative priorities versus position statements versus resolutions. I'm the keeper of the resolutions for the last 2 years for Florida PTA, and we're getting ready to update a 1959 resolution on attendance and the importance of attendance. So we're getting ready to take a statewide look at chronic absenteeism and how you can help, and, you know, at whatever level, communicate that.
Those types of things are the goal of this site, though, not.
But, I mean, it's difficult without good information and good data
Right.
to determine what's the best plan, what's the best way to communicate something. We do take them through, actually, our DOE website, or our EduPortal provides a little more than the report card. It provides a place where you can take a look at the State Board of Education strategic plan and the specific metrics that they would be looking at. Were those, is it on the next
That was my
page?
question. I was thinking it was the strategic plan for each school, and then I realized it was
No,
not,
it's the
right?
State Board of Education strategic plan.
But that is online.
Yeah, I think every district usually has theirs up. But you can take a look at how the State Board of Education, what their strategic plan goals are and what their metrics are. And also, closing the gap. I don't know of a single district, state where closing the gap isn't a priority. This, actually, I've done this with my school, my own schools, and it's helped prompt some conversations because you can do trend lines over the last 5 years, and it gives a very, if you go to the next slide, I think I use my own district up here.
This is where we wanted to use the trend line for graduation for Kathleen High School. The data shocked me.
Yeah, but you can, yeah, she showed that to me. I've never seen it in years. But you can take a quick snapshot of how things are moving with ELA, math, graduation rates for any school district across the edge.
I would
across
love
the
to see
state.
the comparison of substitute versus experienced teacher.
And teacher qualification is one of those
Just saying.
metrics. I will tell you, I'm personally not thrilled with the way it's presented right now, but I also understand that gathering consistent data, and I know this from my job, is of the utmost importance, and it takes a lot. So sometimes, especially when you're talking about different places that do things differently.
Interesting science gap.
And then the other items we gave in your packet, we gave you a copy of our legislative, the Florida PTA legislative items, where we have 240,000 members. We used to have 300,000 members. And we realize that some of that is people really truly do not understand the difference of what a PTA is. Because a PTA is for all children, we are an association. If there's a PTA, a PTO, or some unaffiliated group, they're their own little circle. They're their own little. So one of the things that if you're not familiar with it, I can schedule a separate meeting. You can talk to, so you might have some departments. I know you have some departments in your school district that might be able to indicate, talk to internal audit, talk to community involvement department, and maybe what some of the value they see of what PTA is. So we try to explain whether you're a parent and you joined PTA, regardless whether you realize it or not, you joined at your little, I'm visual, you joined at your little schoolhouse, regardless if your little schoolhouse gets involved with legislative issues or not, a lot of them don't, some do. You now have a voice for what PTA stands for and our legislative priorities when the handful of us have a little bit of time to knock on the door for our legislator and trying to get a meeting with Stargell and some of these others, we are able to say we have, and it's, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it's sad, we only have, what's the number you looked up, 14?
Around 1,400.
Around 1,400 PTA members in Polk County. When I go to Hillsborough, when I go to some of the others, not it, but a lot of it's a support of the district. So a lot of times if people start, yes, I did look at you for a particular reason, Lorraine, sorry. Yes, ma'am.
So my question is, there are a lot of PTOs around, and they were started a few years back. I can remember that movement. So how do we educate, re-educate, or what's the word?
I'm gonna need
Inform
part of
and
that.
educate?
I'm gonna need some, part of it, honestly, because I'm very honest.
Yes.
We're gonna need a lot of that support from you. And my first thing I would beg you to do is on your information of Lori Cunningham, that says you're a proud PTO supporter. I would love for you to join our Polk Community PTSA. I gave you a little barcode you can scan and then change your website to say you're a PTA supporter. And then when you can ask Ms. Carol Matthews, I know there are some other school board members in the past, Ms. Kay Fields and Billy Townsend at one point had some information, does the district have data on which schools have what type of parent groups?
Right, that's next. Yeah.
And we also have many schools that do not have a parent group. So what does it take to get one started? But then you can go ahead and call my business cards in there as well. And when an administrator in the past, many times they will contact somehow somebody in the district, and I can let Carol speak. And we have some information on that website we're going to update at the school districts. I give it to Jeanette Crawley, is indicating there's also an option to have a PTA, and why don't you reach out? So that's where Lori comes in hands. A lot of times, again, I'm gonna say honestly, I was at a school, I started doing the presentation. The parents were gung-ho, they already had a PTO. They actually went to our leadership convention over the summer and were literally blown away. They came back, they said, oh my gosh, we need to shut this down and get an A going. They scheduled a meeting, I went out there, I'm ready to charter them. We get up to the slide that says what? Ms. Bird, $3.50. And literally, the administrator stopped the presentation and said, whoa, wait a minute. $3.50, that a parent joined an association. The $3.50, I don't get to keep, we don't get, no, she did say, we don't get to keep. And I said, yes, ma'am, it's because it's an association. Oh, we need to discuss this a little further. Then there was a teacher in the room that got a little excited and said, well, wait a minute, you vote on the budget 3 times a year? The parent that was formerly their leader of the PTO indicated, said it's not gonna be a difference. We presented one before. So those with the good hearts, it wasn't a big deal. But then Ms. Matthews, and I'll let you discuss with her at another time, you've got other individuals that might have an O that were very upset because they asked for $500 and they wanted the blank $500. Where if a PTA did it, we'd still give you the $500 to support family, community, and teachers, but we needed receipts.
Sure.
Because as a PTA,
Sure.
we are an association and we are not going to lose our association because
Right.
we've got entities not following
Because
state
of the
IRS.
funky math
You got
that
it.
goes
So
on
I'll
with
let that go,
PTSO.
and then we close it out with, we do have contact information if it's really related to the data and the EduPortal and things like that. Angie Gallo, which was formerly our legislative chair at one point, she's very familiar with it as well. Those two are the two you really contact for that. As far as doing some workshops within our session, if we want to team up and do some presentations within each school district and we have your support, we'd be more than happy to start scheduling some of those. My email's up there, my business card. That's it. Okay. I don't want to get in trouble.
I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
She just getting.
I think Ms. Fields had a
I just
question real
have one
quickly.
question.
You know today.
And the membership is for how long? Because I know I was a member.
1 year.
Okay,
And
so-
it's
Charter school
valid
PTO, I think. I gotta
until
go look.
September, your other one expired September 30th
I don't know.
that you had
but
last year. Yes.
Anyway, it'd be nice to get some kind of reminder.
Yes, I need to do a better job at that. We now have a
And I
member
know you're a
portal.
volunteer, and I just want to thank you for all that you do. You are a strong advocate
Amen.
in our community. I mean, you're everywhere. I don't know how you do it.
Bad penny.
But we really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you, Sam.
And
I echo that, Ms. Fields. I see her everywhere.
Well, and she's a strong leader. I mean, she runs that entire convention over the summer. I don't know if you all have been there.
Yeah.
But she runs that entire convention. It's absolutely amazing. You have a phenomenal volunteer parent leader.
absolutely, we
We
appreciate
did
it.
have
Right.
to echo that, and I will get back, but I did convince Mr. Wanseda to allow Ms. Doris Young to attend our leadership convention last year. In essence, it was a volunteer, so she was able to sit in and see a little bit. And again, we can't convince you unless you go. Jacob mentioned what he said, sorry, I'm allowed to say that in this. Jacob O. He came to our convention and was a guest speaker and was literally blown away
Right.
and promised and made a very heartfelt comment that I will be here next year. And not only will I be here next year, I will ensure I send additional bodies to hear and see this message, because without them seeing it, they do not know. We also had a superintendent from farther south attend. He indicated the same thing, and also indicated that when he's in his school board superintendent's meetings, he would do his best. So that's why I'd like to do Wendy Dodge. So when we've got these common grounds of your legislative positions, to me, the value is the more we can get, and the more members, again, we can use those numbers.
Yeah, I'm on the legislative committee.
$5
Last year was my
$5.
first year, and I knew Wendy.
And
She
I-
does a great job.
And I think, before we close, I think, Ms. Gallo, did you have some comments you wanted to make?
Oh, no, Angie's not here. She's the other
Oh.
one in
this
Florida.
is-
Oh, I
I didn't
apologize.
put Diane's information on there. She didn't know she was
Oh,
coming until.
I'm sorry. And so, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it so much. I was going to ask Ms. Fortney to offer some comments, since she actually was one to put this item on the agenda, but,
And she's left the building.
and she has left the building. So, unless there are any other comments, questions?
No, thank you for coming out.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And before we go to board comments, Ms. Miller, I think you had requested some information related to,
The new discipline
yes.
committee meeting?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, they're gonna have an update in December. I asked for some kind of just like a written update of how it's being utilized, but I haven't received anything.
Okay. And with that, then we'll go to board comments. Board comments? Yes,
Back
ma'am.
to that, am I gonna receive something, Chairman?
Receive, well, Madam Superintendent, could you
Well,
restate
the
your
request that
question?
was made, they said, can you hold the request till December so we can do an
Right.
update, which makes sense. But I said, can I have just a written summary of, schools they've attended or something, because discipline is such a hot topic and what I get most of the phone calls on. But I didn't get a response, so.
And I believe it's probably because the team was thinking that was coming in the December report, Mr. Hill.
Yeah, I think there's a little, I guess I misunderstood
okay.
it, so I thought we were bringing it in December.
So you just want a list of schools? to
Some
send
kind
you?
of
I can-
summary
I can
of what
give,
we've done, so
got
when they
a few
ask.
Data points,
You don't have to give it to me right now, Mr. Hill. You can forward it, that's a little bit on the spot. Yeah, no, that's fine. I just, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent.
You're welcome.
Ms. Cunningham?
Just wanted to bring this up. I know everybody's read it because it's been all over the news and social media regarding Governor DeSantis's proposal to increase first-year teacher salaries. And I don't know about your social media, but mine's gone ballistic regarding what about veteran teachers, i.e. those that are not first year. So does anybody know any updates? I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently, but I was wondering, what's the ramifications? Is this for real? Is this just one of those, let's put it out there in the media? Does it look like if they start with beginning teachers, it's gonna ramp up to others? What do we know?
First Wendy.
Yes, thank you.
Well, these are the questions we need to be asking our delegation. Because right now, Governor DeSantis can put this out there, but if he
Right.
doesn't have legislative support to do it, then it's not gonna go very far.
Right, I understand that, but what I'm trying to figure out is what's in the whole, does anybody know?
It's-
Nothing
We don't have
else?
the details.
That's my
It's only
question.
a proposal.
Okay. We
don't have any
It's
details.
what
Okay.
he wants to
Got it.
do.
It's just a
And we need
headline.
to be asking those questions about veteran teachers,
Sure.
about education staff professionals.
Sure, I understand that, that's what I was asking.
Those are the questions everybody needs to be asking those folks.
But we can do stuff for free, you know?
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cunningham.
I just want to thank staff for their work on Iris. I did a request this morning and it is so simple to use and it's so nice to be able to go in and see what other things have been asked, but I'm not duplicating things. So thank you for getting that rolled out.
I just wanted to know if we can make it where it's a little bit more accessible. I know not everybody can access it. At one time, that communication before me was put like on the hub. It was there, but I couldn't access it. And there are plenty of things on the hub that I cannot access because it's not my role. But is there any way to add that to that main page so I'm not digging for a link to get to Iris?
I think when we brought it last time, we told the board members we've never used Iris before. It was just an icon out there. We've never used this. Board members have never used this before. And we said we will have that just for them, and that's why we had the link set, and that's what we discussed. And so far, I think for the ones we're getting back, it's working okay for everyone else, because you can put it on any of your smartphone devices or any of that, because that's where we have it.
Yeah, I just use multiple computers, and there was a Mrs. Fields has been here a long time, and Mrs. Cunningham. There was a communication platform. It might not have been called Iris. Is there opposition to listing it on the main page so I can get to it easier? I don't know. Is it not IT can't do that?
Can you not do it more?
I use multiple computers and my phone. I'm trying to find an easier way to do it. So is it an IT issue or just, I'm just curious.
It's not an issue, but it was actually, when we discussed it, it was that we provide a link for the board members. And we want to put, we will not put it out there. That's what we discussed.
You know, that kind of brings me to, wouldn't it be cool if we had something similar for our staff to interact with?
We'll get there, Ms. Courtney.
I know.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Just-
We built Iris for you. That's what
I like it, man.
Thank you. We'll get
Miss
there.
Winchester just brought Tendra stuff right to me. Met me at the door. Like she was on my.
So you're having trouble accessing?
I don't know why the link, we can do a link, but not putting it out there. It's out there. I don't understand why it can't be accessible, but if nobody wants to do that, then that's fine. I'll keep searching emails wherever computer I'm sitting at to find.
We are.
That's where you are now.
You should be able to just make it a favorite on your desktop.
Yeah.
I have a work desktop, I have 2 laptops, and I work out of my car. I could do that. It would be much easier to be able to click on it wherever I'm sitting. But that's just for me. So if it's just 1 out of 7, I will dig out that link, Miss
I own the
Courtney.
cheapest phone in the world, and it's not going on there. So I'll use school board
So you
stuff.
carry around your laptop? Yeah, well, that's,
No,
I
I
have to
carry
use my
around
phone.
their laptop.
oh, okay.
I don't have one.
Okay. Any further board comments?
Yes, I was speaking to a former student of mine, and she is a past science teacher of the year in Alabama, state of Alabama. And she's wanting to come back to Florida for many reasons. Nothing against Alabama, but mainly to get out of Alabama. And yeah, but she's a really good science teacher. But obviously, but she was talking about the cybersecurity issues that they have had in her district in Tuscaloosa. And apparently, when she called me last night, they hacked into the only 2 hospitals in Tuscaloosa. And
Hear about that.
We're gonna talk about that in just a few minutes.
oh, never mind.
We're gonna talk about that.
But did
in
you
closed
send me her
session.
resume? Yeah.
Hey, here
I'm
we
trying,
go.
Tedra.
Just email her name and I'll email her.
Exactly.
We'll give her a call.
It's not that she doesn't want to come. It's her husband's in IT. Imagine that. Gosh.
Does he have jobs for that too?
Oh,
Yeah.
could be.
Yeah.
Double check.
Y'all may know her. She went to Bartow High.
FERPA,
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Any additional board comment? So the last thing on our agenda for today is a discussion of cybersecurity. And I don't know, does the board want to take a short break before, we'll need to do that in closed session? Do we want to take a short break, or do we want to do that before we take
Can
a
we have
short
a
break?
break? Can we have a break while they set up? And
Okay,
then we
yep.
can clear?
Okay.
I think
What
we
do-
need to let her know.
What do we need, 10, 15 minutes?
15. Get some food.
15 minutes. Okay, so we'll take a short 15-minute break. The cybersecurity meeting will be in closed session. Mr. Bridges, is that correct?
Security board meeting, it is in closed session.
Excuse me.
Thank you.